Hey, we're testing sound. We're just a minute away from starting the meeting. If everyone can take their seat. How's the sound? Director Davidoff, are you there, or
Yeah, Chair, I can hear you really well. Can you hear me?
you are coming in loud and clear? We're gonna
Thank
get
you, Chair.
underway almost immediately.
Turn on the
Hey, it's 9 o'clock. We're going to call the meeting to order. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm just gonna note quickly that we have 7 delegations this morning. And generally, we like to allow about 15 minutes for delegation presentation, question and answer, that kind of thing. So that would consume almost 2 hours. You also have an in-camera agenda. But we are going to try to time the delegations as closely as we can. So, and most of the delegates are online. It looks like some have not been able to get in this morning. So, we acknowledge that we respect the Indigenous peoples within whose traditional lands we're meeting today. Item 4 on your agenda, I'm looking for a recommendation to adopt the agenda as circulated. I see moved and seconded. Anything from staff? Changes, corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Just trying to think, who do we have online? 2 directors?
We do also have,
Graham and Director. Okay, so, do we want to offer freedom of the floor to anybody this morning?
we have freedom, I'll move freedom of the floor for Director Main and Vice Chair McLaren, who is also on the line, but he says he does not need freedom of the floor.
But we will offer it.
We'll offer it.
Do we have a
doesn't
second
have to
to
be
offer freedom to Director Popoff? Any discussion on that? So all in favor? And welcome again, Director Main and Director McLaren Coe. We've received the minutes. They had gone to the board. Delegations. We have a delegation on item 7.9 from Liz Gillis, Friends of the Burton Walkway. And there's a presentation, I guess, in the agenda package. She online?
Yes, it
I
is.
am
Yes.
here.
Yeah, here we are. Okay, so welcome. We would ask that maybe you give your presentation and be ready to answer a few questions, and we are going to try and keep it to 15 minutes or less, because actually with delegations for applicants, we actually have eight different sets today.
Did we reorder it or are we on 7.9 first?
Oh, sorry. Oh, no,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That is 7.9. Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, my apologies. Okay, so thank you, Chair Watson.
Okay.
So we will go in the order of 7.1 beginning. So we have remedial action requirement nuisance, Huser. We do have Henry and Austin Huser here. They were here the last meeting where this was referred from June to July. If you wanted to come to the table, I'd be looking first, I guess, for a staff update. Where is staff with the recommendations on this? Just the recent history since last month, please, Eric, and then we'll ask if there's any update from the landowners and or questions from the committee. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, after last month's committee meeting, I decided to attend the property as there was potentially some recent improvements to the property or steps towards compliance. So I visited the property with Bob Officer Des and myself and had a look at the units and compared them to the engineer's report that was submitted last month. And so this is where we have drafted the current report to reflect that visit and some other further information provided in the report related to ownership. And that's where we are today.
Okay, So, to the users then, when you were here last time, you gave us some printed information, which is something the public was unable to see and difficult for people to read or digest. That's now become part of the agenda package. It's in the public realm as well. Did you want to give us any updates then and or be willing to answer questions from the committee?
I guess, one thing I'd like to show is, on, Officer Gauss' picture on page 35, she shows a picture of the mobile home park in 2012. I'd just like to, everybody has it, I guess. And that was shortly after I sold the mobile home park a few years prior to that, and unfortunately the person got cancer and I ended up with the trailer court back with the problems that were with it. And I think that's a pretty good picture of what it used to look like. And I would like to say that it looks 100 times better today, and I'm pretty sure that Officer Scott would agree with that. I don't know if you've seen the picture, but anyhow, I just, the whole narrative of this thing is that I've been told to destroy a building in 2020, and it absolutely did. I was never told to do that, and that's what makes it look like this thing has been carrying on forever. In the package, there's that I gave the last time, there's an email from Pam Guile dated June 23, 2020, and she says, "Thank you for reaching voluntary compliance for this unsightly property. The unsightly property file will be concluded." That was, I thought I was completely in compliance in 2020. And there's also a picture of a ticket that I received that in Charmaine's package, she had the ticket, but not the stay part. And that happened, there was a misunderstanding and the ticket was stayed. So like the narrative is that I'm a really bad person is what it seemed like. And then in February 15th, Charmaine sent me an email stating that after speaking with my fellow bylaw, we're aware of the situation. The cleanup property fell under the unsightly, which has been remedied as we agreed. The structure itself needing to be taken away falls under the following bylaw, and that's where the nuisance bylaw came in. And under the nuisance bylaw, it states that somewhere here, it states that it refers to a building, fence, retaining wall, sidewalk, scaffolding, and other things. I believe when I look at that, it looks like it would refer to something that's on the property boundary. And I can't imagine that the nuisance bylaw would say that I think the intent of the nuisance bylaw would say that if somebody looks at a building in a farmer's field and they determine a neighbor doesn't like the building in the farmer's field, they can call the regional district and say, "I don't like the looks of that building. I think it's dangerous. I want it taken down." That I think is absolutely not the intent of the bylaw. And there's only 5 electoral districts that have this nuisance bylaw in it. I think it's flawed because I think the interpretation of this bylaw is way out of whack. And so to suggest the buildings are unsafe, the engineer's report definitely says that they're sound. The initial report by the building inspector suggested that they can't determine if they're sound or not because there's a structure, an engineered structure. So we hired a structural engineer and he says they're sound. And I've been in the construction business my whole life, and I'm fairly confident that I can determine if the building is sound or not, but I'm no engineer, so that's why we hired the engineer. We agree 100% with the engineer that this Dave Bergen's trailer, we've applied for a building permit or a demolition permit. We had Dave sign it. He was in tears when he signed it, but he did sign it. And we have a hazmat report being done that is on track to be removed this year. And at the center one of the buildings, the center building, even Eric agreed that it's sound and it doesn't need to be taken down. And all that's in question is the third building, and the engineer still states that it's sound, but he did say in his letter that he has to, he apologizes, he didn't include illegal activity. He says that our assessment does not include the extent of illegal activity or trespass. And we understand the RDCK department is concerned about the latter. I mean, is that the RDCK's job to determine if there's illegal activity going on the property, and I have to protect the property on behalf of the regional district, so the regional district doesn't have can't be liable for trespass or illegal activity? I believe that's my personal problem, that's my liability. I can't imagine how the regional district could be involved in worrying about trespass and illegal activity on my property. I think this whole thing is completely insane. It's not a logical argument. I believe it's emotional, and I'm getting emotional because I think it's so crazy. We absolutely are cleaning the property up, and we're on track to do exactly what the engineer said. We have Dave Bergen, there was ownership question in the last meeting. I knew the ownership, and Dave Bergen has agreed. He has actually signed the permit. The last trailer, we still have to deal with the next of kin. They're not sure that they want to take ownership or whatever, and failing all that, I can use the Mobile Home Act to gain possession of the building. But that building is still sound and it's saleable, so there is an opportunity for the children to maybe sell the thing. And even I have a brother that's a red steel carpenter, and he's looked at the building, and he may even consider taking it. He has a farm and using it for a storage building on his farm. I don't know what the problem is, but we've been cleaning up everything. We're on track. I would beg that just leave me alone and I'll get the job done. And you can see from 2012 to today, we've done an incredible amount of work. And the most important thing is we got rid of all the people, the tenants. That's the biggest job. And I don't know what to say. This is insane. I guess that's any questions.
Okay, thank you for your update. Questions from the committee for the landowners? I'll start with one maybe while people are thinking. Just when you just said that Dave Berman, I believe it is, has signed off on the permit, that is the owner, registered owner of the one structure signed off on the demolition permit.
Yes, sir.
So it's kind of circumventing transfer of ownership, that would be their direct desire to have that structure demolished. Okay.
That was agreed all along. I got in the package, I got him to sign a letter to transfer the property to me, but I mean, it was a panic decision on my part because I helped him get into a new place to live because I knew his trailer wasn't livable, but he had nowhere to go. We helped him get into the senior complex in Salmo. I even gave him 1 month's rent back so that he could get in there. And we got him to sign that paper, and that paper isn't worth the contract isn't worth the paper it's written on, but he's a morally kind person. And I have pictures in 2024, he was still picking stuff up, getting his belongings out of the trailer. And we were being kind to him so that he could comfortably take all of his belongings. And I don't know how it got that it's a crime to be kind to people.
Okay, thanks. But so now in writing, he's consented.
Yes,
as registered owner of
In
that
motion.
should have it demolished.
The permit is they're waiting for the hazmat survey to be handed in, and that's almost done except for the lead reachability. There was some lead paint, and then, so we need to get a reachability test done, and then that'll be done, and that's gonna be on its way.
Thanks.
Actually, there is a little, I mean, there's, in the package, there's a blurred letter,
Couldn't read.
and that's a letter that Charmaine kept saying that I've been told to demolish this building forever, and I said, show me the letter. And this letter she sent to me back in February something, and I've asked for that letter from 5 different people, and Charmaine probably 6 or 7 times for a copy of it. And there's an email in the package saying she'll deliver it on March 3rd. Never ever has. And then all of a sudden, I got a ticket. You can see, actually, there's a picture of the trailer that I took of Charmaine, or I mean, of Francie's trailer. I took the damaged roof off. There's about 10 feet of roof that got damaged. And she's talking about the strength of the building. A cottonwood tree from the neighbor's property fell on it, which, by the way, is not included in the nuisance bylaw. And today, I still can't put structures on that property because the cottonwood trees could still fall on my property. That's not covered under the nuisance bylaw. But it's kind of interesting. After I got the ticket for the structure, that if you can look at it, can you tell me that, does that look like it's a dangerous structure? It's the structure on the right in the picture. But I ended up with a letter, a do not occupy letter, that I know hadn't received it. It says I received it in 2020, but if you look at the metadata on the, because it was sent to me as a Word doc. And if you look at the metadata, it's very clear that the letter that was sent to me, the Word doc, was modified on July 17th at 11:24 a.m. It was modified by Charmaine Dowse, but it's dated 2020. And like in the real world, that wouldn't go. So it's just like all these things keep coming at me. And then there's an adjudication process also, because we got a ticket, so I applied, I disputed the ticket, so there's an adjudication process, and I got an email saying I'll get in contact with the screening officer shortly. 16 months later, 16 hours before I was going to adjudication, I finally got appointed a screening officer. And I mean, you've got bylaws here. I think that they should be followed by the bylaw officers and the people as well, but that's not the point. The point is, we're taking care of the buildings. There is no problem. Please just let me do my job.
Thank you, and you did answer my question. Were there other questions of the landowners from the community? Not seeing any online, none in here, so thank you for your additional input. If you would sit back to the gallery again, we have there's a recommendation published on the agenda. There's also been other considerations. So I'll turn it to Director Cunningham to open the discussion about.
Thank you, Chair.
recommendation.
I'd like to make a recommendation, or putting this up for discussion anyway, that there's the three trailers, I think they should be treated individually. The first one's Francie's trailer, the trailer that the tree fell on. And that one, of course, is going to the relative, but it's in, I don't know if you can call it closing if you don't have a will, but anyway, that thing process is being worked out. And I suggest that, as you mentioned last meeting, could take up to a year, so I don't know. Next year, let's say the fall of next year, October, something like that. The one section of the motion. The second one is the one that belongs to Dave, the one that's in really, really bad shape. And then that trailer will be given until October to be demolished and removed from the property. Because I understand there's the thing with the lifting and all the rest of that stuff. That is more than enough time. And the last trailer is on a concrete foundation, I understand. And that trailer, I believe, should be left on the property as was required by the family. I have not worded that in a motion, but that's my suggestion for a motion, Chair, and I will be going to make a motion after discuss.
So that sounds fair. We could kind of, maybe in discussion, we could try and isolate one unit at a time, and staff might have something to say about timing if staff has to step in and take action.
I wasn't clear on what Director Cunningham was suggesting for the first one, 1 year from now to.
Sounds like a
I just
complete
didn't get what
year.
you were saying,
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, because the one that's in Kobe, because it can take 2 years or something like that, that the event be given to October of next year to have it. That Kobe, that you'll do, I understand you'll do it faster, but it's done faster, and that's going to resolve with the kids. But in the meantime, that's, it's in good shape, it's not gonna fall apart, it's not gonna hurt anybody. The second one was that,
Well, if, Director, so maybe on the first one then, if we could get staff's updated opinion on that particular trailer, which might either be, I guess, reclaimed and relocated by the current registered owner under the manufactured home registry, maybe staff's perspective on timeline and what they feel, is there any urgency? regarding that would prevent us from saying we'll revisit that in a year? Maybe to you, Eric, or to Charmaine?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. So just for, when we're talking about the number one trailer, are we talking about southerly, most southerly unit on that, where the tree fell on? Is that what we're talking about?
We're talking about the one that creek down.
Okay, so, I just wanna circle back to a couple of things here, is that, when we look at the nuisance bylaw, the definition of nuisance is in essence, is to protect the public from, say, any hazards they may, when you look at the definition, of hazards, and this can occur sometimes where, say, there's a property where there's a spill, and it could, there's a problem for the neighborhood or creeks or anything nearby of that. So when you have a structure of this, the unsightly nature you talk about, I believe that is all. The nuisance is when there's a potential hazard to the public, irrespective of whether it's on private property or not. So just so we're understanding that definition of nuisance is protecting the public so that if they wandered onto the property, if something blew over onto a neighbor's property, that we protected them. And this is where after the engineer's report and me having a look at it, there's still a potential for this to occur. So I know we had some discussions in regards to potentially putting some fencing around this unit to there is provisions in Part 8 of the BC Building Code. When we have, and they've indicated that there's ongoing construction that may or may not occur there on this unit, depending on what they want to do with it. This is means in the BC Building Code to protect the public from such hazards, where there's 1.8 meter construction type fencing put around these structures. So that's something that the committee can consider. But also when you're considering that, please also consider a timeline. Winter is coming upon us, and it was pretty clear from the engineer's report that was brought forward that winter is a concern. So when we look at ensuring that this has been done, I can appreciate that reasonable time for the owner to achieve this by a certain date is fair and reasonable. But at some point, to ensure that before winter these matters are been dealt with, that we as the regional district need some time to ensure that this occurs as well.
So I guess just to clarify then, if the measure is to mitigate the risk to the public, the measure is to install fencing, and then it sounds as though that fencing would be installed by some date, August, September, and then that would be it, because whether or not there's a snow load issue, that's a separate action. Person can go in and shore up their own roof, do whatever they want to do, shovel, whatever. But would you feel it's a sufficient mitigation that the action that we'd require for that particular unit would be fencing, 1.8 meter, construction grade by a certain date?
Thank you, through the chair. I believe that is a reasonable approach for the time being. I also will note that the engineer has noted that in his initial letter that a revisit to this in a year is prudent.
Correct, yeah, that was stated. So maybe following the theme of this one unit, and then we'll consider each one, and maybe out of that we'll get 2 or 3 recommendations for what we think is reasonable action. I have Chair Watson, but also maybe go ahead first if you wanted to add to the comments on timeline or actions, or. Please. go ahead.
Through the chair, I also just want to clarify that I spoke to the family of, oops, sorry.
Yeah, you may want to be closer to make sure the owl can pick up your voice if you join us, because that thing seems to be pretty good 10 to 20 feet, but get a little further.
Oh,
Thanks.
I just want to clarify a couple of points. One being, I spoke to the family of the person who was deceased in 2022, who used to own a trailer, and they have nothing in probate. There is no estate. There is 0 probate. They want nothing to do with anything to do with the trailer, and never. Trailer is considered abandoned under the Manufactured Home Act, and therefore there is nothing holding one back that way.
Okay. We would be at arm's length to any conversation then on that. So I have Watson and then Vandenberg. I don't see anybody
You're
online.
good on spot right now.
Go ahead.
I I believe the direction Director Cunningham is suggesting is, I don't necessarily, I think we're good with where we're going with this, but I did have a question to clarify, because what I want to acknowledge is we have two different kind of conflicts here, where you have a resident who, rightly so, has done everything they can to try and pursue resolving an issue. That alone is merited, given some of the issues we run into. That doesn't get you outside of the liability issue, but it does. My question, sorry, I'm trying to get to my question, is noting how much has occurred and how much is being attempted to be done and all the documentation around that. Would that be, should there become an issue where our liability does come into question, would all of the mitigative works that are in play and that we have stuff in the queue, requiring this property to work, not alleviate the liability on us? That's my first question. I'm not sure if that was clear enough, Chair.
We'll find out.
Thank you. Through the chair, I believe that now that there's that engineer's report that's been produced, that has presented, a path forward and concerns that are related to, certain aspects being dealt with prior to winter. For essentially, we'll call them one and three. As far as, the liability, we're in a residential neighborhood. We're not in the middle of a farmer's field. There is, I think we've all experienced recently that we are seeing a lot more heavier winds in our region as of recent. And our climate is changing, and so there's a heightened concern for public safety. Materials being blown off of a roof, building materials, there's potential that exists. If the unit is there, the measures to have fencing, do not address that. They address a portion of that, but not fully. And when we have a property that's essentially abandoned, there's also concerns with that, because there's nobody living there to keep an eye on things. It's something, in our own personal houses, if our portion of our roof blows off, we're probably going to deal with it, because we're there. And when we have an abandoned property, there's nobody, that's present to be able to deal with those matters in a timely manner.
Further?
Two supplementals. One, just that my understanding is there's a do not occupy on this building at this time. So that to me says we've done what we can. We're not policing people's occupancy. We have a do not occupy on it, correct? I just see you nodding. That was a clarification. Okay. Then my second question is just that our ability to actually police at the level, and I'm using that term, I probably should use a different term. I'm not saying we're policing them, but we're trying to be responsible to all. I understand where you're trying to go with this and understand our responsibility. But we only have so many limits to actually physically be watching something, and if it's going to be a problem. So my question is, oftentimes we do a notice on title when things are like, no, this is not up to code, there's problems here. And that also addresses our liability with giving notice to anyone on the property that this. So is that not also an option to alleviate the liability on our end?
Thank you. Through the chair, that liability related to a notice on title is a notice on title is done to advise property owners and potential property owners of a bylaw infraction on the property. The nuisance bylaw is there to help protect the public. And this is where it's been identified based on the state of the structure that there is some nuisance concerns with two of the trailers on the property.
Stuart, did you want to elaborate on that?
Sure. Through the chair, I think it's the existence of the nuisance bylaw and a complaint related to it puts the onus on the regional district to do something about that from a risk perspective. If we ignored the nuisance complaints and didn't do anything, and something happened on the property, there's liability exposure there. Just like we got a complaint about building without a permit, and the board did not put a notice on title on, or did not put a stop work order on, someone inhabits that building and something happens, it's not built to code and we knew about that, that opens liability, but under the building bylaw, not under the nuisance bylaw. Because we have the nuisance bylaw, we now have to address the complaint in order to avoid that liability. That's where Eric's suggestion of the fencing comes in and reassessing in here, per the engineer's requirements.
Okay, last one.
Go ahead, then we have another speaker.
Yeah, thank you, Director Vandenberg, just your patience. I think you've just confirmed though that the original question I had, which is there are many steps taking place that we are acknowledging and acting in the nuisance bylaw within the consideration of the constraints of the owner. and the land itself. So I feel like we're doing what we can. And I have no problem with the proposed direction Dr. Cunningham has, noting that. If we were doing nothing, then I have a problem. I think we're at a good middle ground.
Yeah, we have actions to mitigate, the owner is taking actions to
Yes.
mitigate.
Thank you.
Combination, Director Vandenberg.
Right, thank you through the chair. So my question is around document relevance and in particular on East Drive, the attachments that are titled additional info. Page 5 of that is a document, and my question is generally what the context is. Page 5 and 6 of that is a document with RCK heading, but I can't read it. It's blurry. So what I just need to know, obviously somebody chose to put it in as being additional information. I just don't know the significance of that document. Perhaps it's been talked about. I just want to clarify if there's anything in there I ought to.
So part of how that came in, and it came in by addendum, was I was asked if it would be more clear to present, I guess, my own paraphrasing, present the owner's concerns by formalizing the inclusion of what they were handing out to us in some of the documents they wanted us to look at by having them added to this package. And so I guess really the statement might be, yeah, the owner's seeing what we're seeing, a blurred document. So all it says to me as one member of this committee is maybe that's part of the owner's concern, is they were given a blurred document. What it says, we can try and find that out later. I'm sure somebody has a legible copy, but it was just a request to the owner to include documents that they received over a course of time, just so that we know from their eyes, their perspective, what it is they're looking at. And some of it's blurred. And the owner pointed that out to us during his information there. Be nice to see what that says. I'm not sure that that's the end all for making a decision here, but yeah, somebody receives the blurred document. And we now know that. Any other comment from staff? And I don't want to wait till we see an unblurred copy of that, but where did that blurred document come from? Sure, please go ahead.
Through the chair, I believe this is probably the copy of the letter from Officer Allen in 2020, which probably is in my original package as well. And I don't know if it's blurred because they printed it on the printer or whatever, but everything has been received, has been information, like everything is about blurred. That's the I have a copy of them.
I think it's just a statement that not everything was clear at all points in time. I hope our decision doesn't hinge on that, but please go ahead further.
Just that conversation, the context of the document, why is it included? You pointed out why.
The owner wished to have that.
Yep, and I'm asking, is there any relevance to that document? Because right now it's just kind of useless, not meaning that it changes anything, but I don't know. I can't read it.
Understood. Share the concern. Any other comments or thoughts? Because specific to the issue that I see CEO had put forward, Stuart put forward some wording, and we can look at these one at a time, just in a general context, move on to the next and next, and then decide how many recommendations we want. But what I see put forward to do with this unit, and could this go into chat? Do you have it, Christine?
Yeah.
Not everybody will necessarily be on. It's not terribly long.
First one?
No, the second one. That staff be directed to prepare a compliance agreement to be signed by Mr. Henry Huser in relation to the southerly number 3 dangerous structure located at 605 Cedar Avenue, Salmo, requiring Mr. Huser to immediately, to erect construction fencing around the structure to a minimum height of 1.8 meters, and that the structure either be removed or remediated to a state where it is not in breach of a nuisance bylaw 2043-2009 by September 1st, 2026. So that is very much what Director Cunningham led with. Fencing, I don't like the word immediate, and I'm not making that motion. It should say by a date, as immediate is, doesn't mean immediate. But that I think is in line with what Director Cunningham was thinking. If we could have one recommendation on that unit, and its future be determined over that course of time. Did we want to talk about the other 2 units and then decide if we want to have someone move and second those, or do you want to move and second that one independently? It's up to the committee.
Can I just process-wise check, do directors need it over email as well?
Yeah, it might be best both ways. Thanks.
And I'm just not getting,
Yeah.
I'm not pulling up the group rule email's not coming out from you. You can send us your.
So maybe while that comes, and knowing that these may be done as numbers 1, 2, 3, would we want to continue the conversation? And, as I heard the second, suggestion from Director Cunningham was the one owned by David Berman, and perhaps it is be demolished by a certain date. Now, this is the one where I would think staff would say that either that unit is demolished under the demolition permit by a certain date, or staff is authorized to come in and do that. So the discussion might be around the date. Back to you, Director Cunningham.
Yes, I understand from what we said, the demolition permit has been applied for, so I assume that's going to be followed through. So I do expect that somebody in the motion to have a time by for demolishing would be quite in order.
So with the wording that staff had already put forward, be the basis of this, I see, Yen Stewart has put forward some words that the board authorizes by law enforcement to enter onto the property located at 605 Cedar, legal description, et cetera, with a contractor to remove the, now this says 3 dangerous structures, but it would be to remove this one specific structure with all costs incurred by the RDCK being billed to the property owner, and then the cost incurred be added to the taxes and arrears. You could take that approach for this one unit, and we'd have to consider dates that one, the owner could accomplish that by, and failing that we could accomplish that prior to snow coming, which might either increase the costs for everybody or result in a lapse of a year, which I don't think anybody wants. Is that a reasonable approach to the unit, which is intended to be demolished? Director Cunningham?
Yes, I think that's a reasonable approach. In other words, if a demolition permit has already been applied for to demolish, I assume that that's the intention, and I think that it will give the homeowner time. And failing that, at that point, the district take action, because that's usually the way our usual procedure.
So is that, Stuart, are you typing in a little difference to the words to identify one unit, a timeline for the owner, and then a timeline that would not get us into deep snow for the regional district to take action if necessary. And then maybe we'll move the conversation to the third unit, which is sufficiently sound, I understand now, that it could be left to the owner's discretion to rehabilitate it, or is there any action required on the third unit to Eric or Charmaine?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, after reviewing the engineer's report that was submitted a month ago and attending site and a follow-up conversation with the engineer, based on my site visit, there you can see there's been some efforts to board up the windows. The structure that is currently on there, I believe, is in a state where I would agree with the engineer's determination that is suitable for another year and to be reviewed in another year, being the middle unit that in my letter I noted as being number 2.
So you now have that just Stuart put to directors plus our municipal guests online and in the room. So we have 2 recommendations, which I think Director Cunningham make complete sense to do independently because they might follow different paths. And this process will address all 3 units. So does somebody want to formally move the wording of one of these recommendations? One is the southerly one and the other one is northerly unit. Director Cunningham?
Certainly, in orders with regard to the one that is to be demolished.
Yes.
I'd like to move a recommendation and perhaps,
Okay, so
for assisting, yes, I agree that the direction that right, oops,
well, the full wording is in the email. Can CEO read it, Director, please?
I can't read it on my.
Okay, sure, Stuart.
Through the chair, I can suggest a date for the construction fencing if that would be preferred, but that staff be directed to prepare a compliance agreement to be signed by Mr. Henry Huser in relation to the southerly number 3 dangerous structure located at 605 Cedar Avenue, Sun LBC, requiring Mr. Huser to erect construction fencing around the structure to a minimum height of 1.8 meters by July 31st, 2025, and that the structure be either removed or remediated to a state where it is not in breach of the nuisance bylaw by September 1st, 2026.
Okay, so we're not doing the demolition one. This is the one that's to be contained. Just maybe by a nod, July 31st is just around the corner.
Through the chair, it's written there for discussion for the
Yeah.
committee.
Would you be willing to move that? We can change the date.
I just want to make sure we're talking about right.
That's not the one to demolish. This is the one to surround and remediate.
Yeah, okay.
Correct.
Yeah, I was certainly agree with that.
So that's so moved as read by CEO. Do we have a second? Discussion on that, Director Weatherhead wants.
Just change the date from July 31st.
Yeah, so what would you suggest? Is it
Obtaining that fencing in short order. I
Hey,
don't
we-
know how hard it is to obtain fencing on.
Would you recommend a friendly amendment, Director? August 31st?
Sure, I would agree that it could be a friendly amendment. No.
Staff, it's reasonable time for, if it's not done, to act. Okay, so with that friendly amendment, the compliance agreement, construction fence by August 31st, and removed or remediated by September 1st, 2026. That's what we're looking at as one recommendation. Further discussion on the recommendation, you have it by email, and it's what CEO read. Further discussion? Not seeing any, all in favor. So that is carried at committee, will go to the board tomorrow. Okay, the other recommendation, Director Cunningham, that's with respect to the one to be demolished using the demolition permits in the work. Stuart, could you just read that out, because you have the full wording with the changes in description properly there.
Yeah, through the chair, that the board order Mr. Henry Hooser to meet compliance with the nuisance bylaw by removing the northerly number 1 dangerous structure located at 605 Cedar Avenue, San Luis BC by August 31st, 2025. Should the work not be completed within the designated timeline, the board authorizes bylaw enforcement to enter the property listed with a contractor to remove the northerly number 1 structure with all costs incurred by the RDCK being billed to the property owner identified as Mr. Henry Hooser. All costs be added to the property tax as taxes in arrears should the property owner not pay the bill by December 31st of the year the cleanup costs occurs.
We're gonna move that, second it, and then discuss dates and the like. Mover. Director Cunningham, so move, second. Tierney, discussion, Popoff, please go ahead.
Yeah, I do have a question is, they've applied for the permit. What if there's a delay in granting the permit? Or would that permit be granted immediately?
So I guess
That's
Eric, maybe, is there any time?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, we're actively working with Mr. Hooser on this permit. I encouraged him on my site visit to make this application, which he so did, which is signed by the owner. We are essentially waiting for the hazardous materials assessment report and the other form for our landfill resource recovery to be completed. Once those are submitted, the permit is essentially ready to go.
Further?
Yeah, a supplemental, and if there's a delay in getting the hazardous, can that date be moved back?
We could move it right now, we could wait a month and move it, that's maybe less efficient. See Director Cunningham has a suggestion, Director Cunningham.
I suggest we move it now, because we're always, I would thought if you applied for a demolition report, you'd get an application, you'd get it within a week, you sign it, tear it down kind of thing. I didn't realize, of course, with this thing about lead paint and that, all the rest of the stuff that has to go, which in other words will not involve the applicant, it will involve, order. So I would suggest that we extend that amount by, and considering we're already in the middle of July, the end of August is only 6 weeks away.
So September 30th, would you make that
September
amendment?
30th? Yeah, I think that would be worthwhile.
So you are the mover. Looks a little awkward. Is this a friendly amendment, Director Popoff, to your motion to change it to September 30th? Christine, does that make sense? Okay, so friendly amendment, that direction, action by the owner by September 30th, or action by regional district as the authority to enter and demolish. Further discussion on that recommendation? Anybody online? Not seeing any, all in favor? Any opposed? So those two recommendations will go to the board tomorrow. I think we're good, and the third unit will sit until its destiny is determined through other paths. So thanks very much, Eric. I don't know if you have to stick around for the next few. We are at, we're almost 45 minutes in, but this is a consequential land application, I guess they all are, but this one, there's quite a few elements to it. So we will move to 7.2, development permit variance. Raymond, this is in electoral area B. There's a staff recommendation to approve the issuance of a development variance permit.
We do have the.
And we have the applicant is online, so welcome. That's Eric Raymond. Can you hear us? Mr. Raymond?
He's muted right now.
I hear you.
Okay, so we didn't have a chance, you're being remote, but I'm chairing the meeting. What I will ask you to do is to briefly provide any information which you think we may not already have in the report. I'm gonna ask Zach to give a very quick Coles notes where we're at with this. Then you would be given the opportunity to provide any additional information that you think is relevant or anything you think is missing in the documents that we're looking at. And then if you're willing, we'd like you to answer any questions from the committee members. And then following that, we'd ask you to mute and we will have our discussion around what action to take as a committee, from that point onwards. So we'll start with Zach, Coles notes on this application, then go to the applicant. Go ahead.
Sure. Through the chair, this is a development variance permit in electoral area B to reduce a required setback for a specific type of home-based business in an accessory building. So the accessory building is existing on the property. It was constructed with the valid building permit application and in accordance with the standard setbacks that apply for accessory structures. But given that the proponent is wishing to operate a woodworking business out of the accessory building, it requires additional setbacks. So rather than a standard 2.5 meter setback from an interior lot line, it requires a 15 meter interior setback from the interior lot line. So this application is being pursued to reduce that 15 meter setback to a 2.5 meter setback back to that standard requirement for an accessory building.
Great, thanks very much. And I note, woodworking could be a sawmill in there, in which case 15 meters might be fairly relevant. So, Mr. Raymond, if you wanted to provide any additional information to the committee, or if you don't have anything to add, if you were willing to answer questions, that'd be good. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, to keep it very simple, I think all the information is there, but I just heard a trigger word about sawmill. Yeah, there's definitely not going to be any sawmill. Although I'd love to have a sawmill, I don't see in the future. There's so many people with a sawmill. I can hire out to, machine lumber if I need so. The main thing is I'm a new dad. We just had a newborn baby. So the application of this variance is for me to be able to work from home as much as possible, be close to home so we can raise our child in this beautiful surrounding that we are at. And unfortunately, when we moved there, we didn't plan to have, how do I put that? We didn't plan to buy a big acreage, and I didn't know about the rule of, constructing a woodworking shop. I always thought I could work from home eventually, but I found out while I was building the garage that, there's no way with the size of acreage that I could follow the bylaw rule of 15 meter setback for a woodworking shop. So I went ahead, constructed the building no matter what, and overbuilt it, over-engineered it, so it's really well insulated. So noise pollution wouldn't be a problem. I introduced myself to all our neighbor. It's a very low density neighborhood. We have one direct neighbor, and he helped me build my garage. So, and he's gung-ho, or should I say that? You can't really write that down. He's okay with me having a woodworking shop there. The other thing that I want to mention is that I'm not looking for any employees It's just me as an artisan being able to use the space that I created so I can do small contract work, receive clients by appointment only. So it's not a big commercial traffic in a residential neighborhood. And so I do custom built-ins, one-off pieces. So there's no mass production, there's no constant machinery noise and all that. Keep it simple for a self-employed craftsman, basically. So my neighbor's okay with that, and all the neighbors in our neighborhood, which is about 10 or 12, they're all okay with me conducting my artisanal business from home.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
My apologies for my mischievous comment. If you've been a rural director for long enough, sawmills come up once in a while. I understood that is not at all the intention here. It's not a sawmill. Wood misers can be pretty slick. It's the excavator that brings the logs in and out that upsets the neighbors. So, questions for the delegation on this application from the committee? Not seeing any. Don't see anybody online in chat. Nobody new in chat.
Sorry.
Nope, we're good. Thank you, Mr. Raymond. I think it's fairly straightforward to the committee members. If you wouldn't mind muting, we will have our discussion around the recommendation, staff recommendation. Thank you. So we do have a recommendation. Director Tierney, this is your area.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the staff recommendation that the board approve the issuance of the development variance permit to Kathleen Ann Asher and Eric Raymond for the property located at 3617 Moore Road, electoral area B, and legally described as Lot 31, District Lot 9953. District, Kootenay District Plan 1499, to vary Section 16.35 of electoral area B comprehensive land use bylaw number 2316 to allow a woodworking shop for home-based business to be 2.5 meters from the interior lot line and 7.5 meters from the exterior lot line adjacent to Goat Canyon Road.
Okay, we have second, Director Vandenberg. We don't have to read necessarily that. We can say as the property as listed as indicated. Discussion on the recommendation. Nobody online. Director Watson. Chair Watson, go ahead.
Well, I don't go on with your cheeky
Oh,
comment
no.
of
Go
the
ahead.
day. Can we send a congratulations on your new child letter with that DVD?
And a certificate of application for the apprenticeship program.
Yeah.
Okay, bad humor of the day.
Yeah.
No further discussion on the recommendation, seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? So the committee agrees to that. Mr. Raymond, that will go to the board tomorrow for final review approval. Thank you very much for attending the meeting. That's carried. 7.3 is a development variance permit. Dustin McLean is the applicant. This is at Poodoo Creek Road, electoral area J. And Mr. McLean is also online now. He cannot, I guess he was en route, but could not make it into the meeting. Thank you. Sorry?
How are you guys doing?
We're doing good. Thanks very much. So I don't know if you heard how I introduced the last one. We will get a very quick update from our planner, from Sadie, on this application, then go to you if you want to add information, then go to questions. So we'll turn it over to Sadie.
Right, so this is an application for a development variance permit in Roxburgh in electoral area J. The proposed variances are to the size of the farm residential footprint, the depth of the farm residential footprint, and the size of the proposed accessory dwelling unit. Given the historical development of the lot, including the establishment of the two residential sites prior to the farm residential footprint regulations being in place, and the modest cumulative impact of the residence sizes overall, staff are recommending the board support this application.
Okay, thank you. So then to Mr. McLean, we have an information package in front of us to back up the staff recommendation to approve. Did you want to add anything, or if not, are you willing to answer questions from the committee? The floor is yours.
So you guys would have like what I went over with the last committee kind of thing, like all those details?
Yes.
Yes, okay. There's nothing really new to add to what I discussed with the last committee.
Okay, and
I can answer any questions.
okay, thanks. So as Director Hanegraaff is indicating that your advisory planning heritage committee had a package which they support this application, the recommendation, and yes, that is the same package that we're looking at. Questions from the committee of the applicant? Any questions from the committee? Not seeing any. So I guess that means, Director Hanegraaff, question for the applicant?
No, sorry.
Okay,
No,
well, I'm just gonna.
Sorry, my timing's up.
No, that's fine. So thank you, Mr. McLean, if you could mute. There's no questions, must be very straightforward. And we will go to the recommendation. So Director Hanegraaff.
Yeah, I'd like to move the recommendation as presented in the package.
Okay, we have a second, Popoff. Discussion. Nobody in the room with points to raise, nobody online. This is fairly straightforward, I guess. We will ask for all in favor of the application. Any opposed? So that is carried at committee. We'll go to the board tomorrow, as will the other items. Again, thank you, Mr. McLean. The board will see this tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon.
Morning.
Good morning. That's board chairs being optimistic. We will move on to item 7.4. This is a temporary use permit, Porcupine Wood Products Limited. This is electoral area G. Chris Upper is the representative. Is he appearing, Christine?
No.
No?
Not that I'm aware.
Okay, and can't remember how long ago. I've seen similar applications in the past for this. So Sadie, this is your file. We'll let you give the Coles notes on it to start off. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an application for a temporary use permit for aggregate processing in rural Snellmoe electoral area G. Issuance of this TUP would authorize the proponent to undertake a 3-month time-limited project involving the crushing and screening of aggregate from an authorized sand and gravel extraction area on the site currently under an active mines permit. I note that similar proposals, similar TUPs were issued for similar proposals in 2017 and 2022. No public feedback was received during the referral period for this application, indicating issues with past issued permits. And in addition, we also checked in with bylaw enforcement, and there have been no complaints received related to the mining activity. So given the limited operational period, detailed management plan, lack of concern from the public, and the benefits associated with the production of local ag, staff are recommending that the board approve the TUP.
Thank you. Director Graham, do you have a question for staff?
Thank you. Yeah, through the chair to staff, I'm not that familiar with temporary use permits because I don't have zoning in my area. So how, is there a limit on how many times you can renew a temporary use permit, or how does that work?
Yeah, through the chair, you can only renew a permit once, but you can apply for new permits on a property more than once, if that makes sense.
Supplemental, if I may. So
Yes.
if they have renewed once, this would now be a new application for the same thing?
This is a new application through the chair for a similar proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Director Cunningham.
Yeah, okay. Chair, if I may, the recommendation says we provide notification of the intention to consider a temporary use permit. Does that mean we're going through the whole thing again?
Yeah, through the chair, temporary use permits are kind of funny. Under the Local Government Act, we're basically required to have the board consider, like, are we gonna go forward, think about this? And then we have to advertise it in the newspaper, follow our notice requirements, give one more opportunity for the public to provide feedback, and then you can consider it. So it's kind of a little time stop, and then, you know, after that notice is out, we can bring it back at the next available board meeting.
And their current mining permit goes to the end of September, so it'll be
Yes.
tight. They have a month to do their crushing. Further questions, or Director, would you want to move the recommendation?
Yes, I'll move the recommendation.
We have a seconded discussion on the recommendation. Just been explained. required notification? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? So that is carried, and we'll see this again in August. Thanks very much. We'll go to 7.5. Land use amendment, Coakley Creek Developments, Cummings Resort Limited, electoral area A. When we get to a recommendation, if we move this recommendation, I'm named in it, so I will not move it in the board. I don't think I'll move it either, but we'll get there tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow morning. So Zach, this is a little complicated, this one, but you want to give us an overview, please?
Yeah, through the chair, I guess the complications are potentially that the property is not being used in a different way. The proposal isn't for something new on the property. It's essentially to recognize existing uses on the property that have been there for a number of years. So I've tried to break it down into two kind of different items as far as what the applicant was trying to achieve. This application was originally submitted in 2023, and then through some additional kind of consultation and working with the applicant, it was actually determined that that original application didn't quite achieve what they were looking for. So originally, it was essentially to correct a mapping error where our zoning didn't match the existing land use designation for the property. But through the more detailed review and a site visit and discussions with the applicant, it was actually determined that some of the exclusive use sites on the property where there are currently cabins are not actually a tourist commercial use. They are essentially a residential use. It's for the exclusive use of site owners, I think they refer to them as. And perhaps the applicant, Frank, can maybe clarify some of this as he's been with this organization for a long time. But essentially, the application is to rezone and redesignate portions of the property for those exclusive use sites to a multi-unit residential zone, which is the R6 zone in electoral area A. And the purpose of going with that specific zone in the bylaw is to recognize the limited site area that's dedicated to each of these exclusive use sites. And based on the fact that there is a community water supply and an existing community wastewater system, those site areas can be quite compact for each of those residential units. Further to that, and the original kind of intent of the application is to make the boundaries of the existing C3 zone consistent with the present tourist commercial land use designation. So that was kind of the original purpose, but through the additional discussions with Frank and some other people with Coakley Creek, it was determined that that multi-unit residential zone more accurately suits those exclusive use sites on the property.
Thank you, Zach. So after the delegation, I'll have some questions about the preamble, which or someone may want to answer on this. So welcome, Frank, it's Prosperity Porta.
That's correct, yes.
Yes, and so if you'd heard on the previous applicants, this delegation process, we've had a staff update. If you have anything to add that is not in the package now, and or if you want to answer questions, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I don't necessarily have more to add. Just a clarification, as Zach had indicated, when the group bought the property in 2006-07, we went forward with developing the property. We maintained the commercial function of the trailer sites, but of the 10 owners, we have what we call exclusive use sites, and that's wherein we have established dwellings for our personal use. They are not used for anything other than our personal and family use. That is how we have written our own internal bylaws to restrict usage to that effect. So really what we're trying to achieve with this application is essentially to bring what is there into conformance with the zoning of the property. And since the 10 exclusive use sites would be out of conformance with the tourist commercial, that's where and why we have asked to have this process essentially rezone selected pieces of the total to ensure that we are in conformance. That's the basic thrust for this application.
Thank you. And actually, development of that site goes back 110 years, I think, something in that order. With the Cummings family. Questions for the applicant from the committee? Great mischief on my part then. I've sat around the campfire, never seen the staring eyes of the cougar at night. Do you still have the big cats sitting around the campfire watching people? That's a pretty
however I answer that maybe get me in trouble, but in reality, yeah, we still have wildlife down there. In fact, this past week, my grandkids were able to observe a cow elk as it browsed the property and helped itself to Saskatoon bushes and berries. So still very much a wildlife environment. And yes, we have had cougars spotted on the property over the last number of years.
So I guess my mischief isn't completely mischief because I'm familiar with this site. I knew the descendants of the original owner, Arnold, quite well, and his wife. Yeah, it's a very active wildlife corridor, and this is firming up in the process as well, that dedication of the corridor all the way down the creek to the lakefront, because it's a pretty active area. Anyway, other than that observation, any other questions of the applicant? Seeing none, thank you, Frank. If you wanted to mute, we will go to the recommendation in front of us.
Thank you.
So we do have a staff recommendation that even though we're in committee, probably should not make the recommendation, although first thing I guess I wanted to make observation. This is the biggest preamble I've ever seen, this kind of thing. It talks about school district 8 and housing needs report, financial resource recovery. Maybe as being cheeky, I said to Stuart, well, why don't we refer to the flood hazard mapping, because it is, and they understand the flood hazard, it's identified in the documents, but why such a preamble on this one, and why not every other one, or is this the future? Stuart, do you want to?
Or even Zach worked on the file that kind of led to this.
Evolved,
so
yes.
able to speak
Sure, we'll lay it on you, Zach.
Yeah, so I guess just to keep it simple, the reason for that preamble is to cover a number of consultation requirements that are required as part of an OCP amendment process. So when we're going through a rezoning, it's not necessarily required to consider the waste management plan, financial plan, etc. But for official community plan amendments, the Local Government Act does require us to consider a number of those things. So it's intended just to check those boxes and cover those bases.
And so this is a comprehensive land use bylaw where we have both of them merged in one document, only partial zoning, all OCP. So we're going to see this long preamble more frequently, I guess, in future applications.
More frequently when there's a land use amendment or an OCP amendment.
And then issues like things where we've mapped flood hazard, stuff like that, that's a later stage, I guess. There's no proposal to modify, add, or do anything to the structures at that point. So those things aren't considered at this point. That's a future stage.
Yes, through the chair, the reason why I guess there wasn't any further consideration of the floodplain management bylaw or that hazard area is because at this point in time, there's no new development being proposed. If and when the additional building permits are submitted, whether it's for accessory buildings or potentially additional dwellings, if the density would allow for that, then at that point in time, we would require geotechnical or hazard assessment reports to be completed because the whole lower portion of the property is covered by that Coquitlam Creek NSFEA, non-standard flooding and erosion area. So that would be triggered through subsequent processes, but it wasn't deemed warranted through this specific process. However, if the committee and the board see value in requiring it at this stage, then it could be something that's added as a condition.
Yeah, no, I understand why it's future.
Sorry, can I jump? Sorry to interrupt. I want to jump in.
But rather you're not, we're discussing the recommendation now as committee, and my question is sort of a bigger picture question. What are we going to include when, not specifically this one, but others? And it is clear that there's no current development expansion. That's not the objective of this application. the objective of this application is alignment of actual use with zone. Zone. Okay, so I'm just gonna continue with the committee discussion here about the recommendation, or if anybody wants to make the recommendation, Chair Watson.
Yeah, thanks, and it's good to articulate my question here, and again, it's not necessarily related specific to the application, it's specific to our process around it. I do understand why we have that preamble. I understand through other processes that we keep finding different things we have to actually state, not just do. So no problem there. But my question is on the notion of we waive public hearings at time because they are aligned with the OCP, and my clarification on process for this one is it that it's not like, see, it's a comprehensive land use bylaw, which has the OCP and zoning combined. So is that why a public hearing is still required, or is it that the OCP and the zoning, despite, or regardless of the type of document it is not aligned?
Through the chair, in this case, the reason why a public hearing is required is because the OCP land use designation is actually proposed to be changed through it. So it's going from, I'd have to look at the mapping
It's
again.
okay, I've got that.
Yeah, so it's changing to a multi-unit residential designation to recognize those existing exclusive use sites.
Thank you.
Remember wanting to move this, just sort of.
Oh, I can see.
Moved and seconded the staff recommendation, then further discussion on that recommendation. We'll go to first, second reading, public hearing, and Jack can chair the hearing. All in favor? Any opposed? So then, sure, back to Frank, Mr. Prosperi Porta, that this will now go to the board tomorrow, or is the board be recommended to the board, and then staff will be in touch with you from there about dates as a public hearing would be set up. Thank you.
Dr. Jackman, do you want to move the second motion?
Oh, sorry, they are independent. Yeah, I was thinking as a block, but go ahead, move the second motion, sure.
I'll move the
Separately.
second motion.
Okay. And seconded, all in favor? Okay, thank you very much. It will move as a block tomorrow and not read the preambles act. Okay, this next one, 7.6, land use bylaw amendment, MACE. There's a staff recommendation, no further action has been, as with many of our files, conversation back and forth. The director for Area F could not be present for rural, which we should look up. Is this the second time ever he's missed a RAC meeting or the first time?
Dr. Grant's on the list.
Okay, so we can, this is yours as well, Zach. Maybe we'll let you do Cole's notes on it and then see where we want to go with either recommendation or referral have been discussed. Go ahead, Zach.
Sure. So this is a rezoning application, no OCP amendment required. So the applicant is proposing to rezone the property from a standard country residential zone to a site-specific country residential zone. They would authorize lots of less than 1 hectare. So it would facilitate a subdivision that would have the effect of creating 2 0.8 hectare lots, where 1 hectare lot sizes are required under the standard R2 zone. Do you want me to maybe go into a little bit of the staff recommendation, or we might not even?
Well, yeah, maybe that's enough. Just basically it was potentially a variance on the minimum lot size. So, but since then, I guess I can go to Director Graham, and then there may be a recommendation to refer, there may not. Director Graham, go ahead.
Thank you. So through the chair, so I have had discussions with Director Newell on this item, and he would like, or I will ask the committee to refer the entire thing, not the referral in the staff report, but the entire item to August. And I'd be looking for a second on that.
For the item to August, Brack, with no specific direction to staff. We have a second. Yeah. So in terms of propriety, that's it. No specific direction. We just come back with the same information in August. So we'll vote on that. All in favor? Any opposed? So that is referred. Thanks very much, Director Crank. We will go to item 7.7. We have Melanie Fontaine as the and in the room. And apologies, sometimes it's easier just to go through these as they happen. I realize you've been sitting in the room, but everyone else is sitting online. So we are just running through the numbers as they appear. So this is an application electoral area J to do with the childcare. If we get first, I guess, Sadie, if you give us a Coles Notes overview of this, and then we will go to additional information or questions for the applicant. Go ahead, Sadie.
Thank you. So yeah, as Director Jackman noted, this is an application for a land use bylaw amendment in electoral area J in Raspberry to rezone the property from suburban residential R1 to suburban residential R1K in order to have a daycare facility listed as a permitted accessory use. The applicant who's here today currently operates Wild Rose Childcare out of her residence in compliance with RDCK regulations. And under the current zoning, she's permitted to care for up to 8 children. She's looking to increase that number to a maximum of 12 children. And as this proposal does align with the official community plan, a public hearing is not required. Given the public benefit associated with this application, increasing the number of available childcare spaces in the region, the amount of public support received for the proposal, and the lack of concerns from other agencies, staff are recommending that the board give first, second, and third reading by content.
Okay, I'm just gonna note, because you'll see on another subsequent one, in this case, a public hearing is not required. In the next one, it's not allowed. You remember the changes to do with what the province told us we can do and what we must do. So, yeah, so this is optional, being in alignment with the OCP. So, yeah, please go ahead, Ms. Fontaine, if you want to add anything that, in addition to what we've read in the package, or answer questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a couple of things to add. I will say I do think we're absolutely in a crisis for infant toddler care, specifically under 3 years old. When we opened, and what's in that package is that our wait list grew to 60 kids on the wait list just in a couple of days. Now, a couple months later, we're over 100 children on the wait list, all under 3 years old. The vast majority of those have identified that they have no other childcare options. So these parents are unable to go back to their jobs, unable to get another mat leave. There's some very stressed out parents that don't have any options, and I was one of them. So I'm not an early childhood educator. I'm a parent who could not find childcare, and I have the space and the business savviness. So I opened this as a bit of an innovative model. I don't know of any others in the province where it's in my home, but it's fully hired out to staff. But so not only will this open a couple more spaces to parents, and that seems like a small amount, but it's huge for those parents who are going to receive care. But also we are offering above industry standard wages for our staff. I have 100% employee paid benefits, which is very much not the norm in the childcare industry. I also offer a transparent workplace, and I value the staff. They are essentially raising my son with me. There's nothing more important. The last thing I wanted to add that's not in the package is that Columbia Basin Trust has been incredibly supportive for operations and have given us an additional amount of funding and grants. So we're almost up to $10,000 that they've given us for supplies and equipment, supporting us in the childcare industry. So, yeah.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the applicant?
I have a comment.
Yes, go ahead, please.
I just want to thank Melanie, actually, for having the foresight that you've had and you've shown around the childcare crisis we're experiencing. I really appreciate it, and I'll just be cheering you on because I don't think this will be the last time we hear from Melanie.
I'm going to find another center.
So thanks very much for coming in and being patient. If you wouldn't mind returning to the gallery, we will go over the staff recommendation, which is to do first, second, third reading by content. We have mover, Director Anagraff, second, Watson, Tierney. I have a question. When do we have to send this away to the province or something before you can adopt? Is this one of those that, again, we're being told what we do and when we do it?
Through the chair, typically we have to send the, under the Transportation Act. If it's within 800 meters of controlled access highway, that's when we have to get it to sign up. I don't think this is I don't think that's required.
MOTT said they had no interest, or they weren't concerned, I believe, in the report.
Yeah, not concerned, but also I just don't think it's in that thing. So it doesn't need to go to them prior, but there does have to be a clear date between third reading and adoption. And because we only meet once a month, then there has to be that delay.
A clear date. Now it's 10:19. If I hurry up and speak faster, tomorrow could adoption be added to the agenda?
I don't think so. I think it needs to be one full day. I think we have looked into this.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions, Watson.
Just to note that, it will be 24 hours before we get to the site on tomorrow. If that in any way does support it, we don't have to, I just think if it's 24 hours, we will not be at the site on by 10:25 tomorrow. But we will be done by.
Yeah. Maybe staff could take that away.
Yeah.
And,
through the chair, we can double check. Something tells me we've done this before where it's gotta be a calendar day from midnight to midnight. So if we had our meeting on Friday morning, then it would be possible, but I don't think the 24-hour period qualifies, but I don't recall specifically.
or we have to cross the international date line once or something. Go ahead, Sadie, please.
I think too, the tricky thing is the board needs to get third reading and then the board needs to adopt.
Okay.
That's why I mean, yeah.
Third
My
reading.
brain.
This is thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's another month, like it or not.
Yeah.
Good catch.
Okay, further discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the recommendation, that is carried and goes to the board tomorrow and then perhaps a month later. Again, thanks for coming in. We are on 7.8. This is Macola Development Services, Lakeshore Avenue in Area K. This is Area K, isn't it? Yeah. Sadie, this is your report again. Just checking online. Who do we have? Is it Sarah Bartlett? Yeah. They're online. So we will let Sadie do a quick overview and then go to you for any additional information or answer questions, Ms. Bartlett, if that's okay. Go ahead, Sadie.
Alright, so this is an application for a bylaw amendment in Edgewood and electoral area K to rezone a 1.2 hectare portion of the property from suburban residential R1K to a site-specific multi-unit residential R6 zone. This application would facilitate the development of 10 units of affordable, independent living seniors rental housing with reduced parking requirements. As this proposal offers broad social and economic benefits and aligns with the needs identified in the 2024 Housing Needs Report, and that this proposal is also compatible with the official community plan and surrounding land uses, staff are recommending that this amending bylaw be given first, second, and third reading. And also, Chair Jack noted before, but just note that as a public hearing can't be required for this application, as it's for residential development and consistent with the OCP and for the local government act.
Okay, thanks very much, Sadie. And I note in chat, we also have Hillary Morgan online. So if either or want to provide a little additional information, anything that's not already in the report, ideally, and then if you're willing to answer questions. The floor is yours, either Sarah or Hillary, Ms. Bartlett or Morgan.
Thank you so much for your time. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. You can.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much for your time today. It's really appreciated that we were able to attend this meeting and have your attention towards this development. So we've prepared a brief slideshow presentation. I wanted to present that if that's okay.
Yeah, and so Christine, are you able to put it up?
I think Sarah might have it, just give a moment.
Yeah, I can just share my screen with
Okay,
you.
if
Okay.
you're able, go ahead.
There you go. Can you see this okay?
I cannot.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I have the pic share. There you go. Can you see this okay now?
Coming in, there it is. Great, thank you. And it's in our agenda package as well, if anybody wants to follow me, scribe. Yeah, no, it looks good. We can see it. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So this is the Edgewood Community Club Society's project in Edgewood, electoral area K. It's located at 218 Lakeshore Avenue, and they are proposing the development of 10 units of seniors affordable housing on that site. So just to give you a rundown, here is the Edgewood Community Club Society, they would be the housing operator. They're a volunteer-driven nonprofit organization dedicated to enhancing the quality of life for residents of Edgewood. Their mission is to foster connection, sustain local services, and ensure generations, especially seniors, can remain rooted in their community. They are committed to allowing seniors age in place, want to make sure that they have independence and strengthen the community. They have a very strong volunteer participation with 6 board members and local stakeholders. Just to give you an example of Macola Development Services and what we offer, we are a professional consulting firm and a nonprofit society operating with 23 staff. We have planners, development managers, and dedicated experts in Indigenous relations. We do offer a span of full development spectrum of concept to community development. We have over 35 years of experience in both market and non-market housing, and we partner with all levels of government and nonprofit organizations, First Nations, and private industry. This project specifically is actually going to target the BC Housing Community Housing Fund. And so that's a development that includes a mix of rental rates and will house a diverse range of individuals and households. So what that looks like is that this project itself would have 30 units or 30% of units that are market rents, 50% of units that are rent geared to income, and 20% of units would be deep subsidy units. So we take a BC Housing Hills program where they identify what the average income is for the year of the residents in that community. And we ensure that the affordability of the project is at 30% of their income. So 30% of their income would go to rent and the rest of it would be going to support their lifestyle. So the Edgewood Community Club is seeking funding through the BC Housing Community Fund, which is currently open. And this is the model for what that looks like. Specifics about the project, we have proposed a development of 10 units with 10 parking stalls. The building would be orientated north to south on the proposed lot. The access would be from Culinary Crescent to the parking area. So there's a little picture located at the bottom of the screen there of what that would look like. The building will achieve step code 3. They would have a multi-purpose room and an outdoor patio space for tenant and gatherings and events, then vehicle parking and some indoor scooter storage. All of the units will be adaptable and 1 unit would be fully accessible. As part of this application, we are looking to rezone the property. So the current zone of that property, as Sadie had mentioned, was suburban residential K, so R1K, which is intended for suburban residential use in the form of single, detached, and duplex housing. We are proposing the multi-unit residential R6, which is a multi-unit zone intended for multi-unit housing, and then also reducing the parking requirement from 1.2 stalls per unit to 1 stall per unit. We also would like the development to align with the OCP policies. So we've outlined a few of them here. The OCP outlines to maintain opportunities for rural living through development. We are aligning this proposed development with that, allowing for seniors to age in place in a rural environment. The OCP talks about to support the provision of housing alternates to residents, which include the employment of both rural and suburban lifestyles, and to establish suitable development policies for each form of development. We are proposing the development provides housing alternatives for seniors seeking to stay in their rural community and live independently. And there's a couple of other ones there. I'll just keep this brief. Are there any questions that we can answer for you?
So opening it to the committee, Director Weatherhead.
Actually, kind of know this quite thoroughly, but thank you so much for the presentation and the update. And I actually just have a comment to thank Macola for taking this on for Edgewood. It is, we are so grateful that this expertise is in place. Thank you.
Director Vandenberg.
Just a curiosity question. Yeah, the restriction or the The request to decrease the amount of parking, do you also take in account for visitor parking then? Is the first part of my question, and well, how would you accommodate that? The second is, and I'm sure you've got it covered, although I haven't seen it in the report, access for emergency personnel. Do you have an access lane, something that's dedicated for emergency services?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your question. So in terms of the parking for visitors, as we're following the CHF funding call, there is a portion where we have, market rent, rent geared to income, and deep subsidy. The residents that would be in that deep subsidies piece there most likely would not have a vehicle. They probably wouldn't be able to afford to take care of it, maintain it, etc. And so we have 2 units within this facility that are in the deep subsidy portion of that work. And so we would assume that not every resident would have a vehicle. Some would use scooters. There would be parking or visitor parking designated, probably 1 stall for this development that would be for a visitor spot. But that's what our thinking is around that parking piece. And in terms of laneway access and access for fire trucks and that, yes, we have to ensure that the development has access through for a fire truck or police or anything like that, and be able to support a turnaround radius, et cetera, to get in and out of the facility. And the fire department would have to review all of that during the development permit and building permit applications.
Further questions from the committee? Not seeing any, not seeing in the room or online. So thank you very much for giving your overview presentation. If you wouldn't mind muting now, we will go to the recommendation before us. So the recommendation is first, second, and third reading. Any other questions for staff or Director Weatherhead? Go ahead.
I'd just like to move that motion.
Okay, do you have a second? Seconded. And we'll pop up. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor of the recommendation. Thank you. That is carried. That goes to board tomorrow and has to wait at least 1 month. 1 day, which becomes 1 month to come back for adoption. Thanks very much. Let's see. We'll go to 7.9. Just looking at the time, it's 10:30. Actually, we'll go to the committee and ask. Want to stand up and stretch? Or we have quite a bit ahead of us still, but sometimes 2-3 minutes. What if we say till 10:40? That's 8.5 minutes. So 10:31. We will take a break until 10:40. And I will see. Okay, it's 10:40, calling the meeting back to order. Apologies maybe because we still have an applicant online. But even people online maybe needed a break. So we are moving now to item 7.9. This is the Community Heritage Register, the Burton Historical Cemetery, Electoral Area K. Rishab is the planner working on this application. So as before, we do have Liz Gillis online. I'll let staff give a 5-minute, really kind of quick update on or cold notes on what the project is. And then if you're willing to answer questions or give us other information, we'll go to you, Ms. Gillis, and then back to the recommendation. Go ahead, Risha.
Good morning. Through the chair, the application is regarding inclusion of Burton Historical Cemetery in the IDCK's Community Heritage Register. The site is in Electoral Area A and located on the shoreline of the Errol Lakes at the end of the Old Cemetery Road and 1 kilometer south of the Burton Historical Park. It was previously identified in 2020 Community Heritage Register report for future evaluation. The statement of significance has now been submitted in the package, outlining its heritage value and alignment with several IDCK heritage themes. The site is zoned and designated as environmental reserve and has received no objections through referrals, including those to First Nations and ELC. Inclusion in the Community Heritage Register does not impose legal restrictions or financial obligations, but formally recognize the site's heritage value. Staff recommend the cemetery be added to the register and that formal notice be provided to the owner and the BC Heritage Minister pursuant to sections 592 and 595 of the local government. Thank you.
Thank you, Risha. So going to the applicant, Ms. Gillis, did you want to add any information we don't have in the report or answer questions of the committee? The floor is yours.
Hi, good morning. Yes, this is Liz, and I'm here with Leanne Mentz, who's a part of our Burton Walkway, Friends of Burton Walkway. And just to give a little bit of context, we are a group that reports to the Burton Community Association. Our first priority is the Burton Walkway, which is a 1 kilometer trail. And a few years ago, we noticed that the cemetery that lies adjacent to the site was very neglected. And we thought it was an important project to bring attention to, bring some love to, clean it up, and also build some awareness to the site. I had a little bit of hard time hearing Rishab, so I just wanted to add that, first of all, thank you to him for helping us with the process, very responsive to our requests. And I also wanted to thank Director Weatherhead for encouraging us to apply. And we hope through this process we can bring more awareness and attention and possibly even open up some opportunities for further funding. I didn't know if it was presented or included that the historical records, I should back up here. I wanted to thank RDCK as well for the grants that we've applied to through READY, and that's helped us do some historical research mapping, as well as creating some signage opportunities for the site. That's been all a part of our plan. And through that research, it indicates that we have 97 burial plots, including 5 people of Indigenous heritage. And the stories that we've discovered through this research shows people who created Burton, contributed a lot to our early days. And it's more or less very well unknown and not recognize this history. So we want to bring a little bit of light, shed some light to the early days of Burton through this application. And the other piece to note is that we are one of 10 cemeteries that were impacted by the Arrow Lakes flooding. And our site is the one that's the most accessible by car, and you can walk through it. The other sites have been well grown over, they're on the other side of the lake, not accessible. So not only will this application shed some light and some attention to our site, but it'll bring some attention to the other sites that are located along the Arrow Lakes. And I think, outside of that, the document that we prepared has much more detail. And we're just looking for your support and approval to the next step, and happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. So I'll put that to the committee. Questions or input, Director Weatherhead?
Thank you, and thank you, Vince and Leanne, for speaking to this and all the great work that you do and gathering the community together to keep this site cleaned up every year. It's really quite a phenomenal community effort. I feel that everybody is pretty happy about this. I'd also just like to note that the way that these sites were encapsulated with earth mounded over them, there's not, we don't get to see any of the headstones anymore or anything like that. And so all that BC Hydro really actually did was put up a cairn on highway that said this cairn commemorates the community of Burton and its former residents buried in the cemeteries near this location. And that was basically all that Burton residents got. So 97 people were all but basically forgotten about. And so the work that they're doing, and I really support this being part of the Heritage Registry because anybody looking at their genealogy and things like that will now have something to go to, and their signage will have everybody listed, and it's a pretty important. I think it's very important that it is noted as a cemetery, not just a couple of mounds of earth with a sign. Thank you.
Thanks, Director. Any other questions for the applicants? Director Cunningham.
My question is actually to the staff. I certainly support it because I know that's happened to many of our historical things that have happened with the building of the dams and the flooding and stuff like that. And there have been other cemeteries that have been forgotten because of time, and I know it's terrible. One though is recently, in the last 10 years, the Weimer Cemetery is undergoing a sort of renewal. As you know, we have a service to give us the money. But my question to the staff chair is that could we also get on the Heritage Register for this kind of thing? And how would we do
it?
So through the chair, there is a process, first the historic place need to be nominated. And then we have an entire information package for it. And then we need to prepare a statement of significance. So once the statement of significance is submitted, then we go for the referral process and then finally come to that.
Thank you. And if I make sure to follow up, so specifically, what could be put up? What would be my next move if I wanted to have the Weimer Cemetery included?
First it has to be through the chair.
Yeah, who is nominated?
Yeah, it has to be a consultant, it could be a person. It's not necessary that the person should have a heritage or research background. Anyone who is associated with that particular site can nominate.
Oh, okay, thank you. And would they send it to staff here and then we work on it? I'm sorry, thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I think the ones I've seen, whoever's going to write the statement of significance, that's probably the best person to lead the process. Because they'll be familiar with the whole process. And I've had local historical societies do them, like for Great Creek or Pilot Point.
I have no, I don't know here how much the district does or if the district does anything with regards to before we ship it off to the province.
So on this application, any other questions for the applicant? Director Davidoff, I see, and then Hanegraaff, or no? No.
Okay.
Director Davidoff, please go ahead.
Yeah, it's not to the applicant, it's just after we deal with this to staff.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, so thanks very much for your patience, and I noted because you're of the 8 or 9 delegations we've had today, you were listed early on as being here, and so thank you for your patience of sticking it out through the meeting. If you wouldn't mind muting Liz and Leanne, then we will go to the recommendation before us. So on the recommendation, we have, I'll let Director Weatherhead move the recommendation and go to David Off. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to move the recommendation.
Do we have a second? Enneagram, okay. Did you have any further comment or? Nope.
No, I think that's great. I'm really pleased about this and, they still have a lot of work ahead of them. So best of luck with all the work ahead of you.
And then Director Davidoff on the recommendation, or if you want, we can have another question following the
Yeah,
recommendation.
after the recommendations dealt with, Chair, I have a question to staff.
So then further discussion on the recommendation itself. Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? So that is carried. That will go to the board tomorrow. And then we'll go to Director Davidoff. Question for staff.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, we also have a historic cemetery that's needs some love and attention and respect in Thrums here in our area. And could staff please email all of us kind of the process that we could use to have something recognized? I know we probably have it somewhere in our files, but it'd be nice to kind of get a little primer on how to do this. And I've got a group of people that are interested in starting to work on treating our historic cemetery with some respect.
So through the chair, I'll share the information package for it.
Sure.
So we have prepared it recently. And if any other support is required, so I'm available. So it's
Okay, thanks very much. We will move on to item 7.
So Chair, supplemental.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. And like, I know there's the whole package, but anything that would be helpful to give to a group that's starting this work on how to get a historic cemetery recognized would be useful. And actually the report that's attached to the RAC agenda is useful as well. So just to to speed up the process for us, please. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, that's noted.
Thank you.
Go to item 7.10, subdivision bylaw review. Stephanie is here to give us an overview of this item. And I quizzed her earlier on how it may overlap with the board item tomorrow. And I don't know if you're going to cover that now, or if one of the other chairs will say, wait for tomorrow. So I'm going to have to contain myself because you guys do so much that overlaps between rural and the region as a whole. But go ahead, give us your background of where we're at.
Thank you, Chair Jackman, and good morning. Staff seek the committee's consideration of awarding a contract for consulting services to Urban Systems Limited to undertake the review of the RDCK subdivision bylaw, which was adopted in 2011. And just to be succinct, some examples of key issues for review that have already been identified include topics such as, but not limited to, modernization of the bylaw, access, water provisions, sewage disposal, hazard identification, and creating viable, safe building areas. After reviewing the proposal submissions against the evaluation criteria, the review committee determined that the best proposal was Urban Systems, acknowledging their considerable experience working with other regional districts on their subdivision bylaw reviews and the expertise of the project team. In response, staff recommend that the contract for the RDCK subdivision bylaw review project be awarded to Urban Systems. And through the chair, did you want me to touch on your comment about relationship to other ongoing projects?
Yeah, or I can maybe, because the rest four didn't hear it. I guess this is a lot of money, right? One is exactly where's the money set in the budget, 2025, 2026, because not everything happens in a month or two. And then given where's the money at and what the timeline is for the money, and if we're going to require more money, say for part of this next year, we have other processes underway, like the needs study, where we're kind of pivoting potentially, but that conversation's tomorrow. I just want to make sure that if there's mapping or surfacing of information about what capacity we or private entities have in terms of water, sewage, all the servicing stuff that we need for developing or subdividing. That needs study data, which I understand will be incorporated through our GIS system, that will sort of be fed to this consultant, spending the big chunk of $100,000, so that we don't duplicate anything and they don't make any erroneous assumptions that say there's only water systems here, here, and here, there's only sewage here and here, whereas in fact, we probably across the regional district we might have 50, we might have 100 approved type 3, sewage treatment systems across our RD. So that's how I was wondering how these will dovetail, how the timelines will look, make sure that we don't have a consultant do something that they could just wait a few months and have it laid out before them. So if you can build on that, I'd appreciate it. Then we'll go to Director Popoff.
Thank you.
With a more simple question.
I will do my best to touch on that. I think I'll speak to the budget comment first. The staff report identifies funding to undertake the subdivision bylaw review project, which will come from the province's local government housing initiatives grant, and that was provided to the RDCK. This specific funding from the province was earmarked to help facilitate the implementation of those legislative requirements under Bill 44, which is that housing statute. And just to touch on the relationship of the subdivision bylaw review project to other planning documents and projects underway, like the regional and local community needs project, this sort of gets back to some of our earlier planning workshops when planning was outlining the hierarchy of bylaws and planning documents. So as the Rural Affairs Committee knows, we've got official community plans for a lot of our electoral areas, or that long-range policy section in our comprehensive land use bylaws. And those long-range planning policies really speak to the vision for our community and how the community would aspire to grow in the next 25, 30, 50 years. And then we have our zoning bylaw, which is connected to implementing the long-range vision through the land use regulations. And so the subdivision bylaw would be consistent with those documents and would also speak to how they would implement the vision from the official community plan and the zoning bylaw through subdivision bylaw regulations like lot sizes, road access, and various servicing requirements. So part of that would also involve the potential consideration of completion of the regional and local community needs project, where there's a big geospatial mapping component where the outcome of that project will identify for particular communities. Let's just take Greater Caslo as an example, where growth could be focused. And so we could use that mapping to help inform our long-range planning documents and then trickle down through to zoning bylaw land use regulations, and then of course the zoning bylaw review. I see it as an opportunity that we're looking at embarking on a review of the subdivision bylaw almost at the same time as we're wrapping up another long-range planning project where they could speak to each other, and we would have that data through the mapping to help inform urban systems as we propose consultants. So I think the timing would work well to use that information that we're hopefully getting if the board decides to more carry on with the project.
So just to stick with this point a little bit, because Stuart just gave a nod, because every time I see lots of zeros, I like to look at the budget. So in our budget, we show under expenses, expending an accumulated operating surplus of $439,000, and this is part of that. That is a lot of money. And in the budget, we don't anticipate any of that's going to move to 2026, and you can't anticipate this yet, but you're going to start a contract in the fall. So I hope that when we do our first budget exercises, we're going to see is this shifting either by necessity, you just got to manage your workload when you can get to it. And would this also be maybe shifting strategically, that we tell a consultant to go so far, stop, give us a review, let us integrate input from other planning exercises, then resume your exercise, that kind of thing? That I don't imagine you spend up $439,000 plus all the other contracted work you have to do, another $250,000 this fiscal year. I'm just trying to get my head around that this consultant does work in the most logical, cost-effective method, which might mean don't do too much until something else is finished. So you guys have got a handle on that. We'll look forward to that, I guess, when we see our 2026 budget forecast in a few months. I should go to other people. We have Popoff and Watson.
Yeah, the question I have requires a simple answer. Since it's awarding a direct award of a contract over $75,000, do we not have to go to RFP on that?
We had two prices. You did a ROI or a
Yeah, through the chair, yes, absolutely, in accordance
Expression.
with the RDCK's purchasing policy, we did issue a request for proposals. This was actually a reissuance of a request for proposals where we received 2 submissions. And we went through in accordance with the criteria outlined in our purchasing policy, the various evaluation criteria, so it was a competitive process.
Thank you. That was a simple answer. Thank you.
very tight prices as well, Chair Watson.
Okay, I'm not gonna be super simple, just heads up. And I'm gonna have a bit of a preamble to my comments, which are, I have concerns with where we're doing this because of the limitations when you have no zoning. So the background on that is, in 2006, when Area D had its official community plan done for the whole area, Casco South was identified as a high needs area for residential zoning and land use regulation. That was 20 years ago. That area now has a gravel pit, has been fully logged, and has residential subdivision within the middle of the area where there's gravel pit. The concerns I'm raising is that anytime I've seen a subdivision referral, it has only been for my information because I don't have zoning. I do not formally have the ability to make comment on concerns on subdivisions without zoning. So my flag is, given that zoning is not anywhere in my near future, which we will discuss when we get to that item on the work plan, I have residents that have left the area because they requested this work 20 years ago and they're seeing developments. Every time I let them know I do not have a say on subdivision because of zoning, they counter with, when are we going to do the zoning? And at this point, we've lost the major area. It is in the complete communities identified area, but it's already been developed. So it's a bit cart after the horse, I guess you would say. So will this project enable the ability to include provisions of input from electoral area directors or other considerations that are not addressed through zoning? Because zoning is far, far down the road at this point, as far as I can tell. The issues that have been raised that I would want to be included in the subdivision bylaw, absent of zoning, is that public access it must be guaranteed. We have developers who are actually preventing people from accessing their properties if those friends of the owners are not listed on title. We have developments in areas that are highly sensitive, but no way of controlling that because there's no zoning. And other issues in terms of water access by communities developed under water access only and no parking for them on the other side, which I know Minister of Transportation is now addressing. But I don't get to raise that as show us where that is. So there's been a lot of issues with subdivision where Ministry of Transportation assumes we've been able to make all this input, not understanding that when you don't have zoning, you don't have the legal authority to say anything, which is what I've been informed of. So absent of the zoning, and again, I'll discuss it in the other item, not seeing that in the near future, will they consider all of the things that need to be considered when you don't have zoning in a large area? And there's lots of subdivision occurring.
Through the chair, thank you, Director Watson, for your comments. Certainly, the planning team acknowledges your concerns. I think that's part of the excitement of recommending consideration of awarding the contract to Urban Systems Limited. The project team has a deep expertise in working with regional districts, not dissimilar to ours, where some of those areas do not have land use regulations like zoning. So it'd be great to continue with your feedback with the consulting team to see how a subdivision bylaw review could take that into consideration and to push the envelope in terms of what we could do without zoning. Just to outline for the committee, the work plan proposal for the subdivision bylaw review does involve various input points throughout the phase of the project with our elected officials, our board. So I would hope that Director Watson, you would be sharing that as well, but certainly I've taken notes and can share that with our consulting team so they have the heads up and be prepared for those types of questions at that meeting. And I would hope we could explore what the subdivision bylaw could do to help remedy some of those concerns with this project.
Supplemental?
Sure, go ahead.
I really appreciate that we'll be consulted post the award with the consultants, but I think what I need to flag is that a couple of other times where we've awarded projects, when they get to the point of actually speaking to the elected officials, the scope becomes more than they can handle and more than what was considered in the original contract. So I guess what I'd like to say is I want to ensure this contract includes those provisions where there is no land use regulations, but we need to have input and be able to somehow hold Modi, who is the approving authority, to the conditions we put, even without land use regulations. Does that make sense? I don't want to wait till afterwards and then hear from the consultants. That's outside of our scope.
Through the chair to Director Watson, the request for proposal, which identified the project goals and scope of work, made any prospective consulting team fully aware that we do have electoral areas, that don't have land use regulations. So the consulting teams are well aware of that and some of the issues surrounding subdivision referrals and applications that we get in those areas. So it should be no surprise to Urban Systems, and already embedded in the work plan are those contact points with the board for engagement to get feedback. So that's not above and beyond the existing contract. So I look forward to working with them on their engagement plan and scheduling board workshops should the board entertain awarding the contract to Urban Systems.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Other questions, discussion? I'm sorry, Director Graham, I had noted that yes, you're on the list. Please go ahead.
So thank you for all this information. So through the chair, the funding for this project is going to come from the province's local government housing initiatives grant. Can I be reminded how much that grant was?
But no, this is more than that.
In there.
Yeah. We're holding, it's within a funding envelope of 439,000, but that has more than this in it. And we spent 279,000 last fiscal year. So is that an item we could get back to you offline, that staff could get back to you?
Yeah,
It's a
that's
very
fine.
large grant.
Supplemental, if I may. I'm just trying to understand. So I'm looking at the budget and I'm seeing two grant codes, 43020 and 43025. And I'm wondering which grant code that this project would come from, because I like to make notes in my financial plan. Could I get clarification on that?
The specified one, the second one, 025, Stuart?
Yeah.
Those are funds that were given that we had to do certain projects as required by the province. It would fall in that envelope.
Okay,
Maybe
thank you.
that's something that either Stephanie or Nelson, maybe you could give us an outline of how that money's being broken down. And again, I wouldn't mind seeing how much is kind of this year and next year. Okay, so I see nods from staff, Director Graham, that they will follow up on that, but further, go ahead.
Thank you. Just one last question, again, on the financing. So I'm assuming then that this contract award of the 97,000 would be coming out of 54040 consulting fees, correct?
No, the chair,
No.
contracted services, the line above it.
Okay.
So, on the expense side.
Contract.
yeah.
Okay, well then, thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
If I could clarify that.
Yes.
So through the chair, Director Jackman asked if it would come out of the accumulated operating surplus line item. What we would do is we would bring a future financial plan amendment to the extent that the money's being held here, to move the expense item to contracted services so that we can pay it out of that account, because we don't actually charge anything to that surplus account, because it wouldn't be straightforward and transparent in terms of what the purpose of the expense was, just by looking at this. So you would never see an actual number in the results for the accumulated operating surplus side. That's basically lines that haven't been approved for expenditure yet, so we don't have a line item to attach them to, and primarily it's grants that we carry forward from year to year.
So I think that's what both Director Graham and I are looking for, that clarification as to how this money's being spent and what portion of that might roll to next year, which I think with our current budgeting commitments, we will see this fall. I don't know if you ever put out the call yet, but I think it's gonna be September, something like that. We'll start to see those numbers clarified. Further, Director Graham.
Thank you. Well, I guess the only note I have is that we have $238,000 allocated into contracted services for this S104. So what I'm hearing is that this 97,000 has not been included in that number, or it has.
Offhand, Nelson, if not, you'll have to come back. If it's being held in the surplus line item, we'll have to see it come with a breakdown in that other line item. So we could wait for next month and Director Graham, if that works. I have the same question. It is a lot of money floating between a few different line items. Other questions, comments? We haven't moved to recommendation yet. Vandenberg, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I guess I'm interested in knowing that if the opportunity to review the current regulations and update the subdivision bylaws exists, does that then allow us that, what I find currently right now is we don't, as the RDCK entity, have a lot of say in subdivision when it's being by MOTT. Would this then allow that open that door to those matters that MOTT typically, because they do most of that type of work, and it's just for a couple of things, the only reason that we ever find out about it. What I find is interesting is that subdivision's getting approved in my backyard. I don't know about it, and our neighbors don't know about it because it falls out of our ability to know about it. There is no requirement for MOTT to engage us. So I'm interested in knowing that will I come to expect and find that this work will start opening that door, so that MOTT is more inclined to let us know what's going on for subdivision approvals in our backyards. Because the only thing that we touch on is planning. If it makes the planning cut, then it's all at MOTT. But we don't know that they're building 6, 10, 12 subdivisions across the road and so on and so forth because it's in plan. But it has relevance to the neighborhood. People need to know. So, because if that's not where we're gonna end up, I don't know that we need to readdress any of this.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, thank you, Director Vandenberg. I think the committee is well aware of our regional district role when it comes to providing subdivision referral comments, and that the approval authority rests with the provincial approving officer housed under the Ministry of Transportation and Transit. I think as part of this process, with the consulting team engaging with our elected officials, whether it falls within the subdivision bylaw, recommendations coming out of the final report may include increased collaboration, relationship building with the provincial approving officer moving forward. So I think that those are more strategic matters that staff would take direction from the regional district on. For example, I know other regional districts that I've worked for in the past, most recently Central Okanagan, in the mid-2000s, they were having conversations with the Ministry of Transportation at the time on could they be the first regional district to undertake that provincial approving officer role in-house. So there's a bunch of different avenues we could explore, which are outside of the regulations to be updated in subdivision bylaw review. But I think will naturally come out of this process, if that's what we're hearing from the elected officials strategically.
Further, Director?
No, but I'm glad to hear that, because I'll be watching it very closely. But that in fact does allow us to participate that way, collaborate.
I just wanted to dovetail off my comments. So I had mentioned the Central Okanagan Regional District was considering that when I was a staff member, and they did not move forward with pursuing the provincial approving officer function. They were struggling with some real world issues. This is before West Kelowna was incorporated, and so that was quite a large population base within an electoral area. So they had some issues which we're not seeing here. But I just wanted to share that they did not move forward with creating an in-house approving officer function with the regional district.
Other things like parkland dedication was a significant change that we finally took advantage of a few years ago. I'm hoping something like that might also serve us through this review, Joe Watson.
Yeah, and I it's a really important note to make with the Emergency Disaster Mitigation Act working group. It's come up quite a few times regarding the authority we're being delegated for risk assessments and emergency response. And unfortunately, the MCR staff as well as the EDCM staff are not familiar with the fact that we're not actually the approving authority on subdivisions. So there's a grand disconnect between increasing authorities we're required to have and the authorities we currently have. I'm not saying we need to take that on. I'm just saying that there's a grand disconnect, and it happens at all the tables we interact with externally that think we approve subdivisions where we don't. We have an input. Your input's limited based on your land use regulations.
So we have quite a few other items. There is a recommendation here to start this process. I don't think we've had it moved to the second. Recommendation to award. I will make the staff recommendation that we enter into the consulting services agreement for $97,000 and change. We have a second. Papa. Further discussion or discussion on the recommendation? A lot of money. I'd love to see details, the breakdown as their work plan rolls out, just so you understand where the money's going. And if there's a financial plan amendment, of course, we'll see that in due course. Vandenberg on the recommendation.
Just, and then maybe it's in the report and I'm not seeing it, but when this does go through, what is the timeline? When do we get the consultant coming back to us with something?
Through the chair, in terms of timeline, the final draft bylaw for the subdivision bylaw review project would be brought forward to the Rural Affairs Committee meeting, and the board in the work plan proposal is earmarked July 2026. So hopefully we would be seeing earlier drafts late spring of 2026. And I don't have the proposed work plan in front of me, but well before that, the consulting team would be engaging with the elected officials throughout the phases of the project. So that would be early and ongoing.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the recommendation? Anyone opposed? So that will go to board tomorrow. Thank you, Stephanie. 711. Planning Services Work Plan Review. Nelson, I guess, speaking to this one, we've seen an evolution of options and how to go about. This recommendation is around groupings for sub-regional community plans and zoning bylaws. So maybe Nelson, you've got your presentation up. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Justine, for pulling up the presentation. I'll just have you advance it as needed. Before getting into the presentation, I did want to note a couple things. One is that just an acknowledgement of the time that's gone into this process, and that's a good thing because there's very important strategic decisions to be made here, and the fact that we've taken that time and attention is good in order we can seize on any opportunities for improvement that come out of that reflection. and the dialogue that we've had with the elected officials. As we get into the presentation, my preference, Chair, would be if we can just save questions to the end. And we can always go back to those slides that might have had, if you wanted to ask about specifically. So if we can just go to the next slide, I'll just provide an overview of what we're going to do. But we'll be beginning with a bit of background on how do we get here. We'll look at the planning framework options that are all in your staff report. There's a comparative analysis of those options and then what each of those options looks like in terms of next steps. And we'll end with that recommendation, which is in your staff report for the second option. Next slide. So how did we get here? We started this journey back in November 2023 when we introduced that notion of looking at alternative approaches to providing planning services to our residents. And specifically, we identified the problem of trying to maintain multiple OCPs and zoning bylaws and how this existing regime is unsustainable for the future. So we looked at a couple different options and examples. In that February workshop, as a reminder, we looked at an example from Cowichan Valley Regional District where they undertook a harmonization and modernization approach. And other regional districts like Sunshine Coast, I believe, and others are pursuing that approach. We discussed that tension there between regional and local needs and how do you address that? How do you address them both as opposed to sacrificing one over the other? The subsequent discussions led to the second workshop in December and the summary of which was presented in April. That was that What We Heard report. And some of that detail of that report is in this most recent report, staff report as well. And then just to note that at the Crescent Valley Services Committee meeting in June, we were invited to present on a sub-regional approach, which is the recommendation we're putting forward here. And that resulted in that resolution from those directors of areas A, B, and C to pursue that in the future for their area. So as we get into the options, if we go to the next slide, we will look at the first one, which is the regional consolidation model. So that would look like developing a single regional OCP and overarching growth management framework, consolidating all the zoning bylaws into one. And then if there were a desire to pursue a regional growth strategy, then there'd be easy alignment with that. The benefits, of course, would be the consistency achieved through having that single policy across the region, simplified administrative process for the public and staff and applicants, and that alignment with possible future provincial directives regarding land use planning. Some of the considerations to be mindful of, though, is that it would require that broader consensus, requires legal and technical harmonization of existing bylaws. And the third one I think I would add there is that balancing between that regional and local needs and making sure both are addressed satisfactorily. Next slide, we look at option 2, which is the sub-regional OCP and zoning framework, which is the one we're recommending. We'll get into that further, that rationale. But in this one, we would see 3 official community plans basically, and we would group them. They could be grouped like this. This is one approach. So A, B, and C would be one. D, E, F, G number 2, and the third being H, I, J, K. And we'd have a single OCP and common zoning bylaw in each of those subdivisions. Benefits, of course, would be that standardization and local balances that standardization and local relevance, and it reduces duplication and easier path to consensus than the full regional. So that's seen as a benefit, and ultimately reduces confusion for the public, for developers, and consultants operating in these regions. The consideration of this approach it still requires a lot of moderate coordination effort, and the long-term vision for full alignment must be retained, and it would also require that legal and technical harmonization of those existing bylaws. Next slide is option 3, is I would say more of a status quo approach, but perhaps looking at alignment over time. So you retain the current electoral area-based approach, and then we would review and remove the outdated or low priority projects from the work plan and ensure then consistent language and policy logic across the documents over time. Benefits are that it allows gradual harmonization across the areas. Considerations would be the risk of continued inconsistency and also the time to get there. so slower path to alignment, requires strong internal coordination, and the administrative burden would remain of having those multiple documents. The fourth option is also an incremental alignment, but by theme. So in this option, we would update specific OCP and zonings by theme. So for instance, you take a topic area like agriculture and modernize or update the OCPs all across the board under that topic. And we, in doing so, apply standardized language, definition, and formatting. And that would enable alignment of shared planning issues across the RDCK while retaining distinct OCPs and zoning bylaws. The benefits are that it ensures consistency across similar policy areas and facilitates future consolidation with less, I would say, upfront effort. Still requires strong internal coordination, and community engagement must be carefully designed. It also still maintains multiple benefits and risks of gaps between the themes, and of course that delay in getting full alignment would be significant, just like option 3. So next slide, we can dive into some of that comparative analysis. And for these next few slides, I'll note that we undertook a comparative analysis based on 6 criteria, being time to implement, staff time short-term, administrative efficiency long-term, clarity for public and industry, support for provincial priorities, and the 6th one is long-term strategic benefit. Note that the 3 colors here provide an indicator of suitability for each of the options and each criterion. The continuum extends from green, which is highly suitable, through moderate, which is the yellow color, to orange, which is the least suitable. So under time to implement, we could achieve regional consolidation quite quickly under option 1. And looking at, say, the converse of that is like 3 and 4 gets us there over a significantly longer period of time. Sub-regional, again, in the middle of that. Staff workload short-term, so very high for option 1 and 2, of course, because that investment would require likely consultant support, as we saw other jurisdictions use consultants to make it through that process, because of course it does require a lot of coordination early on, and of course the legal review and community engagement. And short-term, we have manageable for options 3 and 4 there, noting that it's pretty consistent with what we're doing currently. Next slide, we look at administrative efficiency long-term, and option 1, that efficiency is most well achieved with option 1, and less so, but still quite good for option 2, and I would say not so much for 3 and 4, although we note in 4 that the consistent themes reduce ambiguity even with multiple OCPs. That clarity is, I'd say this next indicator is quite similar in terms of the clarity for the public and industry. So achieving that regional-wide consistency provides that clarity for the public and the industry, and less so for options 3 and 4. But I guess for 4 scored a little bit higher there in terms of the thematic clarity achieved through that approach. Next 2 are support for provincial priorities, and I think that you can see that all but option 3 are quite strong in terms of being able to respond to those provincial directives that they come forward. Long-term strategic benefit, of course, very high with options 1 and 2, and less so for options 3. And the note with number 4 is that if we do by theme and get that consistency, it is an excellent stepping stone to eventual consolidation. And next slide is all of them together. So this is a table in your staff report where you can see visually how the scoring suitability is for the different options, which I'd say the first option probably scoring the highest and option 3 the lowest, as indicated by the colors. And next slide is, what is the next step? So if we go with option one, the first step would be for staff to prepare a scoping report, looking at the legal steps, engagement, staffing, and then develop a base structure for that single OCP and zoning bylaw and evaluate the feasibility of a regional growth strategy. Note that at the presentation for Crescent Valley Services Committee, we illustrated that how that's actually quite achievable, that base structure for a single OCP, because there's so much similarity already. And then the long-term goal, of course, would be to initiate a regional OCP if consensus is achieved. If we go with option two, we would first confirm the groupings if the ones that we've put forward make sense. And then we prioritize HIJK sub-region because J is 30 years old as an OCP. So that would be the highest priority for updating. We could then launch an OCP and zoning update for that sub-region 3 and then complete that framework and then expand to other sub-regions. Looking at option 3, we would maintain the area-based planning, prioritize area J for full update, proceed with that update and apply the standard formatting and use that consistent language as we work through the other electoral areas based on the priority set by the board. Under the fourth option, we'd identify the shared themes. As an example, there's development permits and housing for alignment. Apply those templates across all CPs one by one as we go, and then ultimately achieve that thematic consistency. Next slide is the recommendation. So I would say if you were to ask the planners in the room which option to take, we'd say option 1. But option 2 also achieves, it scores pretty high in terms of the suitability based on those criteria. And because there's indications of support from some of the directors already on that one, as noted by the resolution recently approved by the board for a sub-regional framework for A, B, and C, we're recommending option 2 as a sub-regional approach. And the one thing I'm just going to end on is what else is possible? I think in terms of the work plan, all things are possible. So if I think if you have a desire to move up one of those priorities, if you think this is still good, one of, let's say, option 2, but there's a high priority need for, an example would be zoning in those areas that aren't zoned. That's also possible. We brought that recommendation or that option at the previous RAC meeting where we discussed the work plan, and we noted how we had a quote, sort of a rough estimate of what it would cost to do zoning in one of the electoral areas. So that could be worked into, say, the 2026 budget, if that was there. Another is protection of the natural environment. If you really wanted to advance updating of Coogee Lake DPAs, and particularly for, say, Area F that doesn't have a DPA, that's another example of a project that we could undertake if there's a high need there. So although there's the 4 options here, bear in mind all those it's in your control to again direct us as you see the need is highest in your electoral area and across the region. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Nelson. I have speakers. Just going to say, to me, if it was option 2, there'd be outliers who maybe don't group as well as staff may think, and I won't name what they are, but I think of 2 of them. So I do have questions from Davidoff, Graham, Watson, Cunningham right now. Please go and pop up. Please go ahead, Dr. Davidoff.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is kind of a triggering conversation for some of us. And it's interesting to see the recommendation that we're going to be asked to vote on, which hasn't been moved yet. And my question to staff is, how did you come up with group 3? I'd like to know the rationale and logic for that. HIJK, and then the recommendation, the staff just mentioned that J would be the first in group 3 as a kind of the precedent for HIJK grouping, if I heard it correctly. And there's been no consultation with HIJK. We have not had a meeting to even consider this. This is the first we hear of this. And how is J all of a sudden being the first in HIJK to proceed? So a lot of questions, but my question is, how did we come up with group 3 HIJK? And then I have a supplemental. Thank you, Chair.
Go ahead, Nelson.
Okay. Also, I should add, before I answer the question, although I'm the spokesperson today, this has been a great team effort and we've had great support. So to team, if I'm incorrect, please come and speak up, and Bishop, I'm looking at you. But in terms of the groupings, so ABC seemed a logical one based on that last resolution at the last board meeting and the alignment across those ones. HIJK, again, I guess we justified it based on geography and similarity of electoral areas. But again, this is just proposed. If you don't like it, tell us, do it differently. If I don't want to be included, they don't need to be. But we did see that there was value in building off of the work that was done in Area I and maybe following similar formats and templates for J as the next starting point.
And your follow-up director, David Robb.
You're muted.
Yeah, this is I'm gonna be careful what I say. First of all, when you look at benefits, that's fine. But the antonym to benefits are detriments. And that's something that's not listed here in this report. And I actually am tempted to post the detriments in chat, but I think I'll get in trouble for doing that based on the memo we all received. Because it may impact what we're voting on today. But yet, how do I say this without actually listing the detriments?
Okay, so Director, I'm going to take that as a question to the meeting chair. That's me.
Yeah.
So I think I heard staff, this is just throwing this up on the wall to see what sticks. And if through the subsequent conversations, Area I said, no, we're good, we're going to be an outlier. I think I said that a few minutes ago. I think we'd listen to that director suggesting they would be an outlier. If you want to name some detriments as your comments, because we all come with thoughts and comments, please don't put stuff in chat. Within reason, we have, I have a list of speakers, we have a handful more items. Just state what you think the negative would be here and now, so we can all hear it.
Okay, then will I have the time to do that, or am I limited to a minute or 2 minutes, or?
Well, Director, how to phrase this? If you have a long list that will prevent your peers from introducing their first thoughts, I would hope that you would come back with the list at the same time everyone else comes back with their thoughtful lists as to what may or may not impact or benefit their region and their electoral area. So I don't see the need for you to give a speech on what may or may not happen necessarily. If you think that it's simple enough as to say within 30, 60 seconds that you just went through a lengthy process, it was spread out, it was very trying, it was hard on community champions to keep up with your on again, off again process, and you don't want to reintroduce that and throw that at them again. If it's that kind of comment, please either say, yes, that's what it is. Or if it's extremely extensive, I don't know that maybe you'd want to wait and let your peers speak as well, but give us your shortest possible version, please.
Okay, so first of all, staff did not answer the question of how they came up with HIJK without holding a meeting with the directors of HIJK to discuss this grouping. So could we get that answered first, and then I'll make my list of detriments?
Chair, I might just direct folks to page 5 of the staff report. Under proposed solutions, we've listed group under option 2. You'll see the group select electoral areas into 3 sub-regions based on geography, policy similarities, and service delivery.
And I might add, I heard you say, Manager White, that amongst the groups, the oldest, most urgently perhaps needed updating happens to be J. So that would be one consideration, if nothing decided, as to why that group may move into a slot earlier rather than later. So if nothing's decided, Director Davidoff, your summary of concerns, if you can, as briefly as you can, please.
Yep. Lack of trust by some electoral areas due to past negative experiences with neighboring electoral areas and municipalities. Boundary expansion goals. Some municipalities have successfully pursued unfriendly, aggressive boundary expansion goals and harmonization, and this model could help advance those goals. Piggy banks. Electoral areas are perceived by some municipalities as piggy banks and are only invited to participate, blah, blah, blah. Country cousins. Some of us are perceived as inferior country cousins. Loss of rural voice. This is a loss of our autonomy and rural voice by diluting voting strength, because the way these things goes, it ends up becoming, when we are looking, I know right now A, B, and C in City of Creston with their sub-regional group, they have 4 votes. It's not a weighted vote, but that could change very quickly with the board resolution. And it could change very quickly with all with a change. I call it forced harmonization, because ultimately the board decides. An electoral area does not decide. The board decides. So here I see a recommendation, and I see Jay is leading this. Has the director of Jay gone to her community to talk about this? And I really would like a meeting of a grouping, show some respect for us. If you want to group us together, then ask to have a meeting with us. How do we feel about that? Because I think we're more akin to E than we are to K.
Hey, thanks, Director. I noted all your points, staff. Hopefully
Thank you.
Same
I could send them to everybody, but I can't do that anymore. Thanks.
I don't understand that. I just heard what you said and I wrote it down. So,
Point of order, Chair.
Sorry.
Point of order.
Go ahead, your point of order, Director David.
Yeah, thank you. We received an email from the board chair saying that we cannot submit anything in an email or in any way on something that we are voting on that day, if there's a resolution on it.
Okay, so I'd welcome that we have a conversation. I'm available. I'm in town frequently. We can sit down and talk about that as a separate issue, procedural issue.
Thank you.
And I welcome that conversation. And I'd invite the board chair if it impacts the rural committee. So thanks for your input. Nothing decided, nothing on the table actually to vote on as of yet. Graham, Watson, Cunningham, Popoff, and Main are invited member. We have another meeting to hold. I may be asking in a while that we extend the meeting into the lunch hour, or just thinking the closed item, which I won't mention the topic, has some importance in terms of timeliness, but go ahead, Director Graham.
Thank you. And through the chair, I will echo a lot of what Director Davidoff is saying. Being from an area that has only part OCP, part no OCP, and I've been working really hard to try to bring my area together, I would see this staff recommendation as actually setting that back. But with that being said, I think if areas do want to do this sub-regional thing, they should. But I think presenting it as a one-size-fits-all solution is not a good fit for Area E. I have a list like Director Davidoff has, but my number one would be that I've already received public opposition to any kind of harmonization or sub-regional harmonization. And I think using consistent language and copying and pasting, I think that's all great. But if a pathway was going forward with any kind of sub-regional OCP, I would ask Area E to be removed from that. So that will be my comment. And I would hope that this board would not force groups onto areas, especially as Director Davidoff says, there hasn't even been any discussion about it. But for E, this is not the right approach for us. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the beginning of that conversation as I view it. Watson, floor is yours.
Well, given the time left for this meeting and I have a noon commitment and I do have great interest in the in-camera item, I will not state everything I need to say on this report. I will just say I do not support option 1. I do not support option 2. I will highlight the dates indicated in these reports continue to be inaccurate. The most recent motion made by my residents' request for land use regulations was 2018. The OCP creation was 2006 for Area D. That was the last time Area D had a full OCP review. The one noted for 2016 was Ainsworth only, which is one of 24 communities. The 2006 commitment in the OCP was about the serious concerns Caslo South. That is now a gravel pit residential area, totally logged. There's no going back on that one. The proposal here to look at harmonization that puts Area D towards the middle to the end, when my residents are the ones asking for this and are now leaving. We have water access only communities that have nowhere to go. The subdivisions continue because we don't have authority on them. I just find this so incredibly frustrating. My motion would be that I would like to see Area D, land use regulations, zoning continue for the 5 communities identified in 2022, which was the most recent motion, not the motion that initiated this work. And I will just articulate, I find the way we're allocating when this work happens very interesting. If we want to sub-regionalize, we go to the top. If we want to continue with the land use regulations for a geography that's bigger than the comparative regional districts we've used for harmonization. One electoral area is bigger than the RD we compared ourselves to, which is the area I represent, has immense amount of things they're trying to address with no regulations. I've lost my train of thought because I find this talk about triggering. That will be my motion, that Area D, I don't want to discount what other people need to do. I find it really difficult that I keep ending up in a conversation where it sounds like I'm going against J or I'm going against K. And it's not that at all. And residents I represent that can now no longer do what they thought they were going to do based on an OCP that was approved 20 years ago. So would you like that motion now, or do you want to wait for the rest of the conversation?
We have a little more conversation. What I'm taking from that is you want to be viewed as an outlier, whether we have any groupings or not. You consider your area should be an outlier with different focus.
I find the characterization of outlier
So
challenging.
it's a bad word. That's my word, that don't fit in independent, you don't fit in the group.
Geographical context, population density, distance
Yeah.
to servicing, none of that is being accounted for. And I'm only being considered as I appreciate you correction on the language, but also when it comes to this harmonized approach, it has no considerations for those contexts that I have to raise for 2 years in a row now, just in this conversation. I won't talk about efficiencies because I think it's been very inefficient.
What I'm hoping is, depending on what we feel in terms of general agreement with one of these silos or one of these approaches, is that staff's best position might come back to come up with somewhat revised proposal as a starting point for the next conversation, which I realize kicks it down the road. But if you would, I'll put you to return to the list, but I'll go Cunningham, pop off me. Director Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair. As I mentioned before, I think the first thing we have to do before we is indeed make sure everybody has an OCP. If you have, can't even get into zoning if we don't have an OCP. And talking about groupings and things like that are all wonderful, but OCPs have to be done with the local community. And when we prepared the OCP for my area, every group of maybe 10 or 20 families got together to talk about the bigger area, which basically led in something eventually triggered the zoning. But we do have an OCP. And although I think Area J is important and it should be done, before that comes the areas that don't have OCPs, because we can't put together in any kind of harmonization if some areas can have zoning and others can't. I also worry something about if the whole board is voting on it, and it's on something that's, you know, they may vote against what the local people want, and the whole point of zoning is to do what people want in their area. And I think we have to be careful there when we do this thing. I sort of like the same way as we've gone, and I hate, even though it happened with our waste management, with the three major areas, and in some cases, east and central have items that are in common. Good, we can work together on those things, and we can write things up to make that different. But, did I say east and central? I meant west and central. That's all right, you understand. And,
Very much.
okay, and those things are important. And, I like the ABC being together as a group because they do have a general area that's very similar in with regard to things like agriculture and so forth. My area has things like mining, for heaven's sakes. We have a huge old waste area that has to be, comes under some kind. Those things are all have to be considered, and a lot of it, put it this way, my resident, if we could, the district could vote, put area G and make it the waste management area, and that's where we'll keep the dump in Salmo forever. Excuse my language. That, obviously, will be totally, the residents would be up in arms, and probably be shooting flaming arrows in my direction. But that is the kind of thing the district can do if we become too much. Yeah, I like to respect the areas because that's why we are directors of areas, so that because we're the only ones, we don't have a council. So I have to represent everybody in my area, and I so as do the rest of us. So I think we have to be a little careful. First of all, number one, let's get everybody with no CP one way or another. And the areas that don't want no CP must be realized that, listen, if you don't have no CP, you can't move to any other steps with regards to how you're going to make it work. And we don't have to do, well, Area G did not have an OCP for the whole thing at the beginning. We started a little bit, but that's where we gotta go. When people see the advantages of moving out of, well, hey, guess what? I have no zoning, it's good. And to that, well, I have zoning because it's my protection. That I will not have a steel mill next to me or a piggery or whatever. That in fact areas for residential, for farming will be farming. I think that's important. I do like the idea of harmonizing things that we all have in common. And because that would certainly make it easier on staff. And we should be working on that. And I suggest, Chair, looking at the time and realizing what has to happen, and I would like to refer this to another meeting to continue on with our discussions, perhaps some small group discussions, to see if perhaps I could work together with areas E, F, and D, and F on things we could harmonize. Maybe that kind of thing would be worthwhile to your suggestions. Thank you.
I'd very much like to hear Director Popoff and our fairly stalwart visitor, Director Main. So not looking at a referral immediately, Director Popoff. Let's go ahead.
Thank you. Most have been said, what I intend to say. And to me, when I take a look at it, I would agree to referral to another meeting, but with direction to staff, talk to individual directors and see where they're going. Now, when you take a look at Area H, my similarities would be with the three municipalities in the area and their OCPs, because we've got one lake that we're looking at. And other areas like Area D would be similar. Area E would be similar, where they don't have no planning, no zoning. So there's commonalities here and something that we can work on. But I will stop there. I've got a lot more to say, but I will not continue on there. But a referral would be in order on this one. So, but I'm not going to make that motion referral until everybody's heard. And I think Director Main was next on the list.
Main and Vandenberg, please go ahead, Director.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of comments from the perspective of a small municipality that exists right inside a rural area. And however the process does proceed, I would hope to see some consideration and conversation given to the potential impacts to municipalities and the interactions between the municipalities and the rural areas, anticipating the likelihood of increased rural density around the municipalities that could have impacts for infrastructure. And the other thing is, I would really like to see or be pointed towards where consideration is being given to cumulative effects across the subregions and across the entire region. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Vandenberg.
Great, thank you, through the chair. So, assuming that, the sub-regional approach, the, ABC, gains some traction, can I expect that, Bill, because none of the language that I've seen so far really refers to, the opportunity of, local area plans, or area plans and local area plans, will they automatically be built in to that type of OCP update work that ensures our individuality and our local autonomy? And I think those are the right terms to use. I think that's the drilling down that allows that individuality from Rogers area to my area to Gary's area. So will I expect to see that type of the ability for that autonomy to remain?
I think the short answer is yes. Perhaps the longer answer is I don't know if it's necessarily needing to create another planning document. I think those can be addressed adequately through the official community plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go to Hannah Grabs and Dr.
I
Watson, go ahead.
move that this be referred to next month's meeting.
Won't impact what Chair Watson was talking about. So it's having no other.
I thought everyone had spoken.
Well, everyone has spoken once, and maybe a separate recommendation, which I could entertain separately. It's outside of this.
Well, can I ask a question of staff before referral?
Sure, and then we'll discuss referral. Go ahead quickly.
Based on the discussion today, can you revise your recommendations and come back next month with something that's more aligned with our input?
I'd say, Chair, that our recommendation is our recommendation.
Okay.
But that there's, the point of it was to spark this discussion. And then we can work through with you, as opposed to just creating more. I think it'd be better to work through it together.
Then refer it and I'll make my own motion.
Motion to refer the topic. Do we have a second on referral? On propriety of referral, this would be to the August RAC, and are we looking for any specific direction to staff when they bring it back?
So chair on referral.
Yeah, go ahead, Director David Ock.
Yeah, I'd rather make a no action motion than a referral motion. I'm gonna speak against referral, and I'm gonna make a no further action recommendation to the board for tomorrow.
Okay, so we're not gonna speak for or against referral, we're just gonna vote on it. We have no direction to staff. Maybe the conversation hasn't gone far enough, so we're not giving any direction, just accept, please bring this back to August RAC. Is this a direction to staff?
Yes, it is, to consult with every director before they bring it back to RAC.
Is that realistic in terms of, propriety of referral?
Or, just to have the directors provide their input to staff.
Always an option, Director. You can always tell staff what you think directly. I never had someone refuse to pick up the phone or to answer an email. So we have no specific direction to staff. They've understood the conversation.
There was direction to staff. They declined it.
Yeah, they declined.
I'm asking the committee. You want to direct staff specifically what to bring back. Please go ahead. Direction to staff. Hold on, Director David. Go ahead.
My direction to staff is please don't call me to repeat everything I've provided and come back with a motion or recommendations that address what we've provided to as input today.
So we're inviting additional recommendations and modifications to your proposals based on the conversation today. That's direction to staff. Is that by consensus, reasonable direction to staff? Whatever they can come back with as a modification to the proposals today. Reasonable?
So just to clarify, like we want some additional options?
I would.
Or maybe if I can repeat one that I think could address Director Watson's concerns. I could see one option could be that we pursue zoning, take it on as a project to complete the work in area D, and that could be a consideration.
So I think the answer in general is yes, you may come back with some additional information to add to your report today.
So to your point of order, please, can we vote? referral. And then we can,
Director Davidoff, your point of order is specifically, please, again?
can we please stick to referral and vote on referral? Because this
Yes,
is
Director,
getting- we're
I
getting
fully
into the-
agree.
Yeah.
I fully agree. I'm seeking whether on the propriety of referral, if there's specific direction of staff when they return this referred item. That's what we're talking about. And I think we have some understanding that if there's additional information staff can bring back at August RAC, you will do that. So that's direction of staff, reasonable? On referral, all in favor? I see all hands up in the room, a couple on screen. Any opposed to referral?
I'm opposed to referral.
Thank you, Director. Referral is carried. This comes back in August. We'll see what staff can do for us.
So Chair,
No, I have Director Watson, who I had on the speakers list, and I told her we could go back to her after this discussion. Please go ahead, Director Watson.
Thank you. I did want to globally recognize the direction of staff to incorporate comments from area E, from area H. Like, it wasn't just D. So I just want to highlight, there was a lot of input. There's been a lot of input for over a year. That highlights the differences from what staff's recommending to what directors are seeking. And I just want to identify, I wasn't solely speaking to what D needed in terms of input to staff that could alter their report for next month.
Yeah.
I'm going to move to public time because it's noon and people may drop off the meeting. In fact, the committee may drop off the meeting. So at 12 o'clock, I'm looking to open to the public. We have Valley Voice. We have Bob, maybe the public. There's nobody in the room from the public. Can I have any questions of this committee from the public? If you have any, please unmute and ask them at this time. Just giving you a minute to unmute. There may be 3 or 4 people of the public on this meeting. Any questions of this committee? So hesitating long enough, I see there are no questions from the public.
So Chair,
don't
just
have
on a
any-
point of order for the next meeting.
Point of order, go ahead, Director.
Yeah, just on this referral, I heard the chair just say that this matter now has been referred to August meeting. I heard the chair say that each director should provide their written comments so it forms part of the formal record for the next meeting. Is that
No.
correct?
That's not correct. I think what you heard me say as chair, we all have the opportunity. At any time, CAO has not obstructed us from directly conferring with staff on issues relevant to work plan items. If it's on staff work plan and through the CAO, general manager, we have been sanctioned to at any time put our concerns to staff. And they have always answered my questions, whether by phone or email. That is what I said.
Okay,
So
so
that's where it
just-
stands.
my point of order is this. I have a list of all the detriments to this work, what the model being proposed by staff.
Understood. I have those notes recorded.
Okay,
That's not
but-
a point of order.
So Chair, my point of order is this, the chair sent out an email that I can't circulate that at.
We're not discussing that, Director
Right.
Davidoff.
Now, can
If
I
that is
send,
an issue for the board, speak to it at the board, not at this committee, or speak to it with the committee chair and or the board chair separately, please. I don't view this as a point of order. I think you're out of order.
no, my point of order is, how can I get this on the formal record in writing? That's it.
The way you'd put anything else in writing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. 7:12, we have for information planning services quarterly report. I would encourage here, just as we just said, if you are surprised by any items that are on that list, I would encourage you to contact staff directly, Director Vandenberg.
Just a couple of quick questions on that. In the report, and particularly with the file numbers, the last letter of it is typically the area of reference, but there are some that say HS and HN. And my short mind does not quite understand what that could be. So that was gonna be one of my questions. I can't take that off.
He asked this a month or two ago. Director Popov, do you know why?
Yeah, through the chair.
Go to the north.
Yeah, I can clarify. HS is HS South, which does not have any planning. And HN is North, which has an OCP.
Okay, We moved item 8, there are no items from environmental services. I would ask that somebody move items 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3 as a block.
So
Moved, seconded, discussion on any or all of those, they're all, Community Works Fund applications. Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Those are carried, we will go to board tomorrow. I'd like a motion to exclude the public from the meeting, please.
So,
All in favor? Thank you, and I might note that, I'm hoping we will maintain quorum.